everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. Thanks for being here on a very special episode. I'm joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
Who, for the record, is playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, but we cannot talk about it in a big way until next week. So we're going to have a better, bigger conversation with a bigger group next week when we all get our hands on Indiana's bones.
I was quickly looking up. Yeah, it's like, what? I can say I'm playing it. That's all I can say at this point, right? Yeah,
awesome. Sorry for the frustration, everybody. We'll get to it soon. Jacob Geller's here.
I insisted on this episode happening.
It's true. We were waffling, and then Jacob said, "Are you nuts? This is the best." We're joined by Charles Hart to make sure it's the best.
And that's what I'll do.
Hell yeah. What this is, everybody, this, of course, is the big celebration of the best video game music of 2024. So I'm sorry out there, everybody, but all you freaks out there, time to turn your podcast apps to one-time speed. Welcome to molasses. This is what we actually sound like as human beings. Or if you don't want to hear the music, you want to listen to podcast at 2.75 speed or whatever you normies out there are up to, you can skip ahead. There's time codes below if you want to jump ahead, because also in this episode, we are talking about Monster Hunter Wilds. Charles flew to Osaka, Japan.
What was that with your hands?
I don't know. It's not important. But we're going to talk all about that trip. You got to play 6 hours of the game. Yes, yes?
Yes.
Awesome. We'll get into all that stuff. And then community questions in the back half of the show. We're also going to be joined by one Kelsey Lewin. After that stupid music's done, she's going to be joining us for the Monster Hunter discussion. And then we're going to touch on, until then, Antonblast and a couple odds and ends as well, again, before community questions. But there's always table setting to do. A couple quick things. If you have the Patreon exclusive podcast feed where you get the ad-free version of this podcast one day early, thank you. You're the reason this whole thing exists and operates, some would say. If you're a Spotify listener, there has been a glitch in the matrix. So the feed is broken at the moment, but I have tickets out and that will be fixed as soon as possible. Also, we will run down the full schedule for MinnMax's Game of the Year Awards at the end of this show. We don't want to bore everybody up top, but we are doing the 210s, which is what we call basically the top 20 games of the year. It'll be a big debate, and we also have our MinnMax Awards, which is about categories. That's going to be in the back half of December, so stay tuned to the end of the podcast, and we'll run down the full schedule, but that is happening. And the 210s are in honor of the 2 ends in Minnesota. That's why it's called that. Some people were confused still, but it's a nice reminder that there are a lot of new listeners, a lot of new viewers. So if you are new and you've never seen or heard the 210s before, sound off in the YouTube comments. Let's see if you're new, because we always have to wonder how much table setting to do. So we appreciate that. All right, video game music in 2024. The first year in a long time we haven't had Emily Reese on the show. She has a busy schedule. She's like, I don't know, I haven't played enough new. I think I'd be boring. I don't know. So we still love her dearly. And if you want some Emily Reese, you can check out the last travelogue from Minneapolis where she appeared miraculously to hug Jacob at Utapils Brewing on MinnMax's YouTube channel. But we're going to be celebrating the best game music of 2024. We each have three tracks, but we all kind of overflowed.
A lot of extra E's on that 3.
Yeah, it turns out you're trying to boil it down to 3. There's just too much good music to get to. So this is going to be a chill episode. Let's sit back. Let's enjoy some music. Sip some hot chocolate at home if it's cold and blistering winds out there. Get cozy. Let's listen to some great soundtracks. Who wants to go first? Who is feeling red hot on a game track this year? Jacob Geller. Hell yeah. What do you want to kick it off with, man?
Can we kick it off with a game that we might not talk as much about as some people might want us to, but that Stellar Blade track that I sent you.
Yes.
This is going to kick us off with a bang.
Because genuinely, when it was nominated for like the best game music of 2024 at the Game Awards, I heard some people be like, does that actually have a good soundtrack? Maybe even this podcast we did.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay.
It's the worst thing that you can say about it is it's a pretty derivative soundtrack, because it sounds a lot like Nier in the same way that a lot of that game is. It kind of seems to be cribbing from Nier, but like, guess what? Nier Automata has maybe the best soundtrack ever put in a video game, so like, I am not upset about them stealing.
All right, here we go. This is from Stellar Blade. And by the way, all these songs are going to be in the description if you want to check them out on your own here. Demo Crawler from Stellar Blade, everybody.
Is that a boss track? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's the thing about Stellar Blade is that the last like 4 hours of the game really kick into overdrive, and a lot of the best stuff in the game is there. And so I remember reaching this boss and going like, oh my god, I didn't know this game had this kind of heat.
Yeah.
That song is the most compelled I have ever been to play Stellar Blade.
It does a
What this
lot of
episode's all
work.
about.
Yeah.
We do have, by the way, Kyle, one of your bonus tracks was another Stellar Blade track. Should we jump into this one while we're here?
Yeah, which is funny because it's like almost the first track. It's not the first, but it's very early. And it's the battle version, right? Because there's like a regular version, and then there's a version that kicks up into high gear when you start combat. Imagine that with like really fantastic animation and like running through an apocalyptic rainy street.
Yeah,
you know, it's good stuff. It's good
That's
stuff.
pretty sweet. Charles, by the way, it's your first time doing the music episode, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Charles, you're like the most qualified person to be here, despite it being your first time, because you're like,
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, Kyle's a drummer. Jacob plays piano. I can sing like an angel, but you're like a real musician. You're like a real ass musician, man.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll take that. I don't. Yeah. I was gonna qualify it, but I'm like, no, I'll take it. I'll be a real musician for the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Give me like your rankings for like instruments you are the best at in the world.
I'm a trombone player. Trombone number 1, marching baritone number 2, because I played that for a long time, which is like kind of the same thing, but has valves instead of a slide. Then I played a lot of ukulele, and then I like can use a piano enough to like write a song for something.
Perfect.
So I did my big like final college project was I wrote a musical. And so I could use the piano to like program in the notes for the musical and stuff, but I couldn't like sit down and play a song for you.
That's a crazy thing to casually drop.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the musical? Do you think it should be, or are we missing out by not putting it up on its feet?
I think it's good. It's very, it very much feels to me like past college. It is like the apex of my college career, and now I'm on a new chapter of my life. So it's kind of weird to go back to what was like the season finale of my education and like prop it up as like a thing I would do now. But no, it's good. I'm proud of it still.
Okay. Are you as proud of that as you are about your big pick here? We're just going to make a lot of people happy. Should I dive into this one?
Oh, sure. This song is in 7/4.
Is it really?
In bars of 7, which I appreciate.
This is Balatro, everybody. The main theme from Balatro.
Yeah, like anyone didn't recognize the Balatro music.
It did actually take me a second. Yeah.
I love that there is effectively one musical track in Balatro. Like, it's just this. You know, if you look it up on YouTube, it's like 15 minutes long, but like, it's just this over and over, and yet you don't get tired of it.
That's why you know that every other composer has failed, because they have to write multiple tracks. It should just be called like a song list. Like, I don't know, this one, do you like it? Like, if you're that confident, just write one song, composers. No. Composers, write one song. All right, what speaks to you here, Charles?
I am a sucker for weird time signatures, so I do really like that it's in 7. I think that's fun. It also is like it keeps you on your toes in a weird way. Like, you can listen to it for so long because it just, all the different parts of it are coming together to do different things, and it's a very good thing to sit in the back of your mind for a long time while you play this card game.
Yes.
And because it's so long, it loops and you don't even realize it, and it's just hard to get sick of.
That's perfect. Oh, this part, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a couple of different tracks mashed into one.
Yeah.
I was like, because a poker hand is 5 cards, and I was like, were they going for something really thematic with that 7? But I guess not really.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think the story of this, I'm looking for the, I mean, it was like local thunk Balatro developer just like found a freelance musician, like, you know, because it's like, you're just a solo dev. He did not know that he was going to make a game that was going to sell a bazillion copies, and so I think it was just like finding someone online and being like, hey, I don't know, can you make a soundtrack for this poker game?
You make a Hall of Fame soundtrack, please? Jesus. All right, this one from number 3, tricky, but considering, you know, the composer's skills and how few people might actually hear it, I wanted to dive in. This is Mars After Midnight, the Playdate game by Lucas Pope. You know, like, composed one of the coolest soundtracks from 2018 with Return of the Obra Dinn, and then he composed Mars After Midnight here. But here's a taste of this soundtrack for the Playdate game from the creator of Papers, Please and Obra Dinn. Mars After Midnight, everybody. It has hints of the greatest video game song of all time, which is the RoboCop theme on the Game Boy.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's why it's striking a chord, I think.
I was going to say, it is very Game Boy, but like in a way that the Game Boy could never actually pull any of that off. But like, it just makes you think of Game Boy in a weird way.
Yep, absolutely.
I've never played a Playdate. Does it have like a limited sound chip, or are people just kind of using that as the aesthetic?
It must have a limited sound chip, but I don't know.
I don't think so. But
I should know after visiting that studio for a very, very long time, but no, I don't think I really have an understanding of that. Kyle, do you got a main one you want to jump in with, not just piggybacking off Jacob's here?
Yeah, let's do the number 1 from Kunitsu-Gami, which I really like this track in particular a lot because it really surprised me. It's a lot different from the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And it is like the penultimate boss of the game. It's not the final boss, but it's like one of the near the end of the game bosses, and you're like, what is happening?
I know what this is going to be.
I love it. So Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess here. And it's like action happening right now?
Yeah, it's a big boss fight.
It's like a big spider scuttling around.
Yeah. Like, if you're not familiar with this game, look at the trailer and imagine doing a boss fight in that aesthetic as track.
That's so good.
It's like... Time signature story there, Charles.
That rules. I gotta play
my
that.
favorite emotion to feel when listening to a song is bewildered, and that absolutely
it works.
What's going on? Heck yeah.
It's kind of panicky. Yeah, that was one of the tracks this year where I immediately pulled out my phone and I was like, let me write this down for end of the year music because it's so crazy. I love that track.
That's funny because even in the beginning of the game, I immediately wrote down like, oh, this track rules. Even from like the first bass that you make
Yeah,
from Path
yeah.
of the Gods. Here's that track here. You couldn't ask for a better soundtrack for just a peaceful bass that you're building out in the game.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
But there is as much, if not more, wailing electric guitar in the soundtrack as well. Like,
Yeah.
there's like it's all over the place in the best way.
I love it. Jacob, what do you want to show?
Can we do the one from Hades?
I would love to do some Hades 2 love here. This is Coral Crown from Hades 2.
These are my endless muse. All who hear me bring the slurp upper. This shall be their final cruise. Down, down, king of wolves with a cold crown. Drown, drown, save your breath 'cause tonight you'll go.
Hell yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting that like we all didn't really discuss it, but I think have decided like Hades 2 is not going to be a game that we're going to talk about for the 210s.
Feels that way.
Because it'll come out in 1.0 next year. I'm planning to play way more of it. But this is a boss that was in it from their earliest early access version, and it is just like it is super giant, just stunting on everyone. Like the boss is a 3-piece band that has a singer, a drummer, and a guitarist, and like as you take them out in different orders, different parts of the song drop out, and then it like changes as you're doing it. And there's actually, they sing multiple songs. The kind of funnier one is there's one that the title of the song is "I am going to claw out your eyes, parentheses, and drown you to death," which is the lyrics of the song. But I just, like, musically, I think this one is really, really cool. And it's like, it's always fun to fight that boss.
I love that.
I almost sent I Am Gonna Claw.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
I really like that one, yeah. Let's do my Beastie Ball track.
I'm so excited you played this one. Here we go.
I really like Beastie Ball. Before you hit play, I wanna let you why I like this song. It's in the first 2 bars of the music.
Okay.
Beastie Ball, it is Pokemon, which everyone knows and mostly loves, and it's Pokemon, and they're going to twist it and they're going to add a bunch of stuff onto it. So if you keep in mind that mindset of moving from the old to the new, and you listen to the first 2 bars of the song, which this is like the first town in the game, it is like these 2 measures of music are what Beastie Ball is.
Okay.
And I get excited every time I listen to it.
And this is, from the composer of Celeste and Chicory, Lena Rain here. even podcast. Let's just play this every week instead for 2 hours.
It's good. I really like it a lot. I hadn't heard that.
It's got like the chiptune vibes, and there's a lot of like music that like emulates that. Like the Celeste soundtrack is like, we're going to adhere to this aesthetic, and this is like, this is the like pixely kind of sound you're looking for, and then they were like, we're gonna add in a piano and like a modern sounding drum.
so
Yeah,
good.
I
Just
love the like
in
real
concert.
piano in there.
Yeah, so it excites me.
I have some music here. Yes, there's new music in this game, but some of the remixes of the previous music, I
What are we
can't.
gonna talk about?
I can't ignore because it just
could be
gets
going
me to my
Astro Bot.
core. Nope, I'm going a different direction. World of Goo 2, everybody. Here we go.
There are so many good, like the old tunes with new instruments.
Yes.
Songs in that game.
Just more string instruments, kind of a more kind of rustic feel to some of those old tunes.
Very Beetlejuice.
I was gonna say it sounds like Danny Elfman.
The original is extremely Danny Elfman. It's like they added like kind of a, I don't know, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of earthy layer on top of the Danny Elfman score from the original for the early stuff. But yeah, this is another one, Jacob, that just kills me from World of Goo 2. This is the Tumblr track.
Oh yeah. I know we have a ton, but can I send you another one from World of Goo 2?
Yeah, you know what? Why are we doing anything else? Absolutely.
That song makes
skip-
me want to cry.
Oh, really?
Beautiful. It sounded. That was like the climax of a cowboy movie where he's like on his horse chasing after a train. Like that was fantastic.
And it just, listen to that whole track, Charles, because it just builds completely in as you're trying to build a tower. And they typically save that track for when you're trying to build a really tall tower. So it's just like, it gets so chaotic and it's just building and building, getting faster and faster. Okay, this is Atomic Express.
Yeah, this one
here.
is now when you've caught up with the train. Skip to like a minute into this one.
All right, here we go.
I just love that one is like you're on board a train. And I just love that there is literally like a choga choga choga
You
choga
need
choga
it.
choga like under the music.
Absolutely. Put it in every train level in every game. Absolutely.
And it's got whatever instrument in Across the Spider-Verse that they use to represent Spider-Man 2099.
Right. Yeah, good
yeah.
pull. I think that's just stretched cat, I think is the instrument technically.
Yeah.
Well, I know for the Prowler they used like slowed down elephant noises and stuff like that.
Really?
That fully tracks, yeah.
There's all
Jesus.
kinds of weird stuff in there.
Okay, Kyle, what do you want to play?
Let's do that. Let's do that Harold Halibut track, which is a game that like I was so excited for, and like I just love the way it looks and the setup of that game, but it didn't grab me. But I did really like this very chill. This is a good relaxing track. there. It's the start screen music, so it's really inviting you into this game that is quite chill. Like it is, you're just sort of like in an underwater station, sort of like walking around talking to people. Like I don't know. It set the tone well.
Oh yeah.
Even if the game ultimately didn't like really excite me in a big way, I was really enamored with it initially.
Yeah, still with the look of that, definitely one of the wildest looking games of the year.
Yeah,
It's Harold Halibut.
Someone had to do it. Let's do the metaphor song.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
here we go, everybody. What's amazing about this and then the Persona 5 main battle theme as well, right? Like, what is it called? Last Surprise? But like the fact that they both have like big drops, if you will. Like it's like a minute and then climactic moment. I feel like for a lot of other RPGs and JRPGs, like combat, it's like it's going to be intense, but it's going to be about even. But it's so rare to have like in the thing you do so much in JRPG to be like, yeah, but wait for it. Like this is really going to elevate this battle
Now,
in a big way.
Do you know the thing about the lyrics of this?
Oh, it's in Esperanto, right?
It's in Esperanto. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a very weird, honestly, a great Wikipedia page to read. Like a guy who was like, I'm going to make the universal language in like the 1800s, early 1900s, and like
and it worked.
Kind of caught on more than you would think if you were just a guy who decided to make the universal language. But like now it's, there are very few people who speak it, but it's just like, it's such a weird, cool choice. And then it's like, it is kind of similar to Buddhist chanting or whatever, but just like doing it in Esperanto is so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we all remember where we were when we heard that for the first time and the chanting started, and you were like, "What is happening right now?"
So good. All right, Charles.
Well, hold on.
battle.
This is a good excuse to. Should we just do my
yeah.
bonus track real quick? Because I had another metaphor track. Because the Persona team is just like they're great soundtracks, obviously, but like the chill music is also just like out of this world. Like Beneath the Mask from Persona 5, a game that I did not even play, is like in my top 20 like favorite video game music tracks of all time, like period.
Yeah.
So I wanted to at least showcase some of the chill music from Metaphor, which is when you're on the ship, just sort of waiting. Like you hear this a lot when you're playing Metaphor. Where it's like, let me go check on my friends. We're literally on a road trip right now.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what everyone's up to. Like you hear it a lot, and it's always great. It's my favorite track from the game. Like the combat music blew my mind and continues to, and it's really exciting. But that's the track that I would see myself returning to and listening to. The game and stuff like that.
Well, let's stay on the JRPG front, if you will. There's this game called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that has one of the greatest soundtracks ever. Tough to choose which song represents, the game in a big way, but for me, this song from earlier in the game, which is a new version of Tifa's theme, just elevated to new levels, really sets it apart. So this is Rebirth here.
Cowboy Tifa.
in my wildest damn dreams. Oh, goosebumps listening to that damn thing. If you'd have told me that there's a new version of Tifa's theme in the remake, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. And then this is what they produce. Like, it's just so much better than I ever could have imagined. It's ridiculous.
I mean this in a very complimentary way. This is the most overproduced track I've ever heard.
Yes, yeah. But in a cool way, right?
30 things happening.
Why the hell not? Oh, I would love to know. Just give me a 20-part documentary series just about the creation of the soundtracks for the 7 remake games. Like, that team is just having a blast. And shout out real quick, I promise it won't be the whole episode, shout out real quick to the Gungaga theme as well, which again, who the hell cares about Gungaga? I don't want to hear from you Zack Fair fans, but it's just a nothing region in the original game, and then this is what they do for the world.
This is from Moana.
It just keeps building from there. But when they brought out the choir and sang this at the Rebirth concert, it's like, oh, okay, nothing better. Nothing better than a full choir singing the Gungaga region music from Rebirth. Just absurd.
There's actually there's an island theme in Metaphor that ordinarily I would think, hey, this is really good, but it's pretty similar to Gongaga, and Gongaga
really?
just eats its lunch. Like, it does not stand up to it.
Don't mess with Gungaga. All right, Charles, what do you want to play?
Let's do. I have 2 songs from Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom here.
Love it. Yes.
Do my bonus one I just sent first, because I think this is my favorite song, but the other one I have cool stuff about.
Okay.
This is trombone representation, is why I like it so much.
Can you just play that to me every night before I go to bed, Charles? Is that cool?
Well, I could play that for you, but I'd love to play this next one as a more a lullaby. Just real quick, I want to talk about that. That is a scene where you get to minor spoilers for Echoes of Wisdom. It's not that big of a deal. 2 Zora chiefs each have an instrument, and they're playing them together.
Right.
That's a scene where they're doing it. And I always like just when the Zelda games, they're like, oh yeah, instruments are really important to our world. They are magical things that create big, important magic. And I like this being a moment where it's like, yeah, these 2 people playing together, and it is the resolution of conflict, a very satisfying moment, and it's just also a good song.
It's beautiful. I never thought those 2 would finally shake hands, but by God, they did it.
And then this next one is Try's theme, your little companion. So I like that it sounds like a music box.
Yeah.
That's really cool. But the main reason I like this so much, and this is, I asked Ben if I could do this. I'm going to insert my get a load of this early in the episode. This is my get a load of this.
All right.
So Try's theme is da da da, which is the notes C and then F and then D. If you reverse those, it's da 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 da. It's Zelda's Lullaby backwards.
Of course.
So I like that. And there's a bunch of instances in the Echoes of Wisdom soundtrack where songs for certain areas will be the same like interval as they are in other moments in the Zelda canon, but it's reversed. So the normal Hyrule Field theme is like da 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 da. So it's da da, and then the Echoes of Wisdom theme is like, I can't remember how it goes.
We might have it right here. If
I
you
might
want to
have it as a bonus track.
Is it
Yeah,
this?
go for it. Play it real quick. Da-da. So it's not all reversed, but it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Love doing that, man. Like the Skyward Sword reversal thing
That's-
is still
Yes.
like the coolest thing I've ever heard in a game.
The fact that it sounds so good backwards, like now that team's like, well, if ever in doubt, reverse one of the past tracks and it'll be a banger, no
I've
doubt.
gotten a lot of mileage out of just taking those like 5 notes and just sort of like moving them around. Yeah.
Okay, let's soak in this for a little bit here. It's amazing. 2024, still great new Zelda overworld music being produced. That's so weird.
Really, my favorite since Dark World, Link Between Worlds.
Correct.
Like that is like so good. But
Yep.
yeah, at the moment you go on the open world in Echoes of Wisdom, you're like, yes, perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's also like orchestrated very, like it is a Zelda soundtrack, but it does sound very distinct, which I appreciate. Like it doesn't just sound like another Zelda soundtrack, as if that would be a bad thing.
Right.
But just so many like clarinets and flutes and like bass clarinets in that song are just like instruments you don't usually hear as like your overworld theme. It's really exciting.
Kyle, you have one from Content Warning?
Yeah, this is a silly one, you guys.
Okay.
Jacob, you know that scene in Community where they do the alternate realities and Donald Glover walks into the room and everything is on fire?
Of course.
You know what I'm talking about? Right. Famous meme at this point. Content Warning is basically a video game that like sets up that scenario for you. Like it just is like what's going on? Nothing's going on. And then all of a sudden everything will go wrong all of a sudden. And sometimes it'll be like, hey, you get extra points if you're playing this song and dancing while chaos is happening all around you. So this is a track that you will activate and play, and then you will try to record your partner dancing to it. Meanwhile, the world is like setting on fire and monsters are chasing you and spiders are like trying to pull you up into the sky. So like this song has just become, for this year for me playing this game with my family, has just become like this hilarious thing that I just always return to and really makes me laugh.
Money. Make views, which makes us money.
Big views, which makes us money. So imagine this playing while your 12-year-old daughter is screaming and running around in a circle.
I want to hear it. Hang on.
Make views, which makes us money.
Very funny. Gotcha. The Content Warning dancing is just like...
Film cool stuff for our viewers. Make views, which makes us money. Make views, which makes us money.
Welcome to the inside of Jacob Geller's head at all times.
Make views, which gets us money. I
That's
just also
excellent.
like the sort of just like, this is what we have to get views, which will get us money. Like that's the lyrics of the song.
Yep, that's good. Well, this is a little unconventional. I've got one here. It always feels like cheating to have, lyrics because everybody likes to hear a voice. But the singing in this from this year, I think, is another level here.
Did they have brains or knowledge? Make me laugh. It's all about popular. It's not.
Charles Hart in Japan singing karaoke to Wicked soundtrack, everybody.
I did record that and then played it back. In my mind, I was like, I'll do the end of the travelogue and it'll have me doing karaoke in the background. It'll be this like cute little moment. And then I was like, oh, it's horrible to watch yourself do karaoke back.
It's the worst.
Oh my gosh.
You always
And there
think...
were some comments that were like, Charles actually killed it at karaoke. I'm like, I am glad I tricked you enough because that was a rough watch for me. Second time
Mission
around.
accomplished, dude. Yeah, it's the worst. Like, I like to do karaoke every year for my birthday. And whenever somebody whips out their phone, I'm like, this isn't going to go well. It's not doing. But then they'll like send me the videos and I'll watch it the sober light of day the next day. And I'm like, I thought I nailed What's This from Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, they should have me on the official recording. And then I see it, it's just me flailing around like a goon. Okay, here's a real one with vocals. This is All You Need Is Help from Q Games and Pixel Junk. Here we go.
上げて目で合図息を合わせて All you need is help All みんなで You need も何度もいずと遊んで Help わからないことだらけ手を上げて目で合図息を合わせて All you need is help, help, help.
There we go. The main theme to All You Need Is Help, everybody.
What is that?
That sounds like a.
It's All You Need Is Help, which is like a cooperative puzzle game where you're like pushing shapes to fit a certain grid. It's cool. I think it's still on Game Pass.
That sounds like it should be scoring like an indie comedy from 2007.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like a Juno or something.
That's the
Yes.
exact example I was gonna give. Yeah, big Juno energy.
Jacob, we overlapped on one here. Should we jump in and hear this?
Yeah. I assume I know which one it is.
There we go. Astrobot,
Break the
everybody.
seal.
Great year for Trump.
Oh, absolutely. Gotta hear a little more. Sorry.
And mouth harp.
Yeah, the first time you get to this hub area and start building it up in this game, it's like, okay, they are knocking it out of the park
Like,
with the soundtrack here.
I nearly like fell off the couch. Like if you were like gun to my head, what is your favorite song? I might say Ecstasy of Gold by Ennio Morricone, like the Western song. And
Right.
the idea that like the hub world is basically just that. It made me so happy.
It's just, okay, here's towards the end here. Too good. It's too good.
And that doesn't even have the PS5 bit singing along,
I know.
which is even better. It's like, yeah, very interactive zone.
Okay.
That song has so infected my household that yesterday when I was like pulling up songs to send to you, I started playing that, and Annie thought that I was making fun of her because she had been singing it in the shower earlier that day. It's just everywhere.
Oh boy. All right, let's see. Somebody else got one they want to throw out there?
Did all mine.
Did all mine.
Okay.
Oh, I got more. Can we do a Slitterhead one? That's just a really 180 from Astrobot.
Here we go. People always asking to do the Slitterhead. All right, everyone at home, stand up out of your chairs and do the Slitterhead as we listen to this. Here we go.
You get the idea.
And this is as you're possessing people in the back alleys of this dark town?
It's a big chase scene.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, but
okay.
We talked about this on the pod, but this is just like Akira Yamaoka fully let off the leash.
Silent Hill
just
composer,
being like,
yeah.
do whatever the hell you want, man. Go crazy.
Love it. Let's see. We should probably get to this one here. It's 2024, everybody.
Yeah.
Helldivers 2 main theme. Where you're dropping. The fact that just those two notes, the dun dun, like that can always hit so hard. You're just waiting for like those two to hit.
I mean,
Excellent.
I can't remember the last time Haley was playing Helldivers 2 for the first time yesterday. It's like, I can't remember the last time I've played multiplayer games with people where they comment on the music so often.
Right,
like, it is
right.
such an important part of that game.
It's huge, absolutely. Also, shout out to the soundtrack from Boar Blasters. I forgot how good that was, Jacob, the game that we like to bash, but then continually bring it up for like, yeah, but it was pretty sweet, though. Do you want to listen to hear a little bit of Boar Blasters, everybody?
Yeah.
There we go. Mining with a helicopter as you're listening to that soundtrack is pretty sweet.
That sounds a lot like the opening song to the show Young Justice.
Okay.
Like DC show. It's like the same guitar riff.
I could see it. Also, shout out, I don't want to play it, but Dragon Quest III's HD 2D soundtrack is also fantastic top to bottom. I mean, they got, I think like, the Tokyo orchestra to record it. It just sounds amazing. But here's one. It's a little game music trivia, everybody. Everybody play along at home. I dare you. If you can guess the name of this track before I reveal it or what game it's from, I would say I'll send you a Steam code, but there's no way to validate it. But I'll be very, very impressed if one person out there can do it. But tell me what game this is from.
Is this a 2024 game?
Yes.
It feels Dragon Age-y, but it seems like you built it up as to make them surprised. I don't think it's Dragon Age for that reason. Avatar DLC.
Is it secretly like Marvel Snap or something?
Warmer?
Okay.
Marvel Rivals?
This? Oh my God. No, this is the main theme to a game that I'm seeing here is called South Park Snow Day, ladies and gentlemen. But I remember playing that and be like, Jesus Christ, the soundtrack rules. I think
Haley at home screaming.
Yeah, the
that
only
she knew
person
what
who
it
finished that game. But yeah, I think they did the same thing that they did for the South Park Stick of Truth, where that soundtrack is so much like Skyrim soundtrack. And I think this is very much like their take on the Baldur's Gate 3 soundtrack, as far as I can tell. But it's freaking cool. All right, Jacob, you have one from 1000 Times Resist here.
Yeah, this is my favorite super weepy piano.
Let's get weepy.
Someone remembering something in this scene, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm remembering to tell you to shut it. 1000 Times Resist, everybody.
It's just like that. The first like 30 minutes of that game, the characters are just like speaking in ways where you just like don't know what anyone is talking about because it's so kind of like dense starting out. And I remember playing it and like not really knowing what was going on. And that song starts playing and it was just like, what am I feeling right now? It's like I don't even understand the relationship that these characters have. And it's just like so emotional.
Oh, that's amazing.
They actually released a songbook like PDF that you can get because there's a lot of piano music in that game, and so you can just like download it, and that's one of the ones on it. And it's really cool to play that song on the piano because all of the notes are wrong. Like they really they don't sound good next to each other in kind of normal piano playing. Like you are not playing kind of traditional chords or in normal keys or whatever. But then it's like as you get it up to speed, you can kind of recognize it. But it's like it's a very weird piece musically.
We have a couple people who snuck in some links, and maybe on Bonus Pod or Patreon exclusive podcast we can take more suggestions from the community because there's infinite great game music this year obviously, but I have a couple examples. Maniac wrote this in, and this is why I'm a judgy SOB, because he wrote in saying, hey, Star Wars Outlaws, the Mos Eisley music is really good. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna be the Cantina theme, got it, but this is Star Wars Outlaws Mos Eisley music. And the good news is that's the brown note, so everyone please enjoy that at home.
Remember when Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order opened with like throat singing? Like Cal was like listening to his iPod. And you were like, whoa, what are we doing here? That's kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
That's what Star Wars video game music is, I guess, in that really low rumbly part of your chest.
So damn cool.
I'm a big fan of a glissando as a trombone player, where you like slide down a note. It's very easy to do on trombone, but on other instruments it's always weird. So that was a glissando, I assume, on like a double bass of like the I'm like, yeah, more of that in every song.
Thank you for knowing these words, Charles. You're elevating this. Other than it sounded deep. Graham Gilmore wrote in saying like, hey, do you all have a best soundtrack of the year for a game you haven't played yet? Because mine is The Rogue Prince of Persia, because that soundtrack is ridiculous. Let's listen to this here. It's really good.
Rocks.
I know, the entire soundtrack is really good. I was listening to it the other day. Asadi did this soundtrack apparently, but I don't know if... Look, I don't know anything about music, period, but from the basis of it, I guess he's a big trap musician, and everyone's like, oh, Asadi killed the soundtrack. It's a lot of terms out there, so... but there we go, everybody. Links below in the description for all of these. But yeah, hopefully we can cover a lot more in an episode of Bonus Pod, or have some outlet for the community to share even more links, because there's a ton of great stuff out there for sure. Hey, you know who I'm thankful for this year?
Who?
I'll tell you who. Turtle Beach, everybody. Turtle Beach is back again. Special thanks to Turtle Beach. They've been supporting MinnMax in a big way this year, and they're the type of sponsor that comes in and I'm like, oh, thank God. I genuinely like Turtle Beach. Check out their online store. There's great stuff in there, turtlebeach.com, because yes, they have headsets, which are great, but also if you need a new controller, a keyboard, mouse, flight sticks, racing sticks, everything under the sun, flight sticks, all that fun stuff. Did I mention racing sticks? You can go to turtlebeach.com. They sent out the Tekken arcade sticks, the Tekken 8 Victrix Pro FS arcade stick. Genuinely, all I want to do in my life right now is set that up and play Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That is that's gonna be my heaven. Tekken 8, I'm sure it's fine. Sorry, Tekken fans, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on that fight stick is gonna be sweet. But Turtle Beach wants you to know about the Stealth 700 Gen 3 headset that you can get at Turtle Beach's online store there. 80-hour battery life, the first ever cross-play dual wireless transmitter system. Switch between the console and PC with one button. Also switch to your phone. You can listen to music. Listen to music that we played on this show. Take calls, all that fun stuff with the Stealth 700 Gen 3 headset. And for a limited time only, you can go to turtlebeach.com and get 10% off your order with the promo code MinnMax. If you're looking for a gift for a gamer in your life, it's a good opportunity here. Get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com, use code MinnMax for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code MinnMax. Don't delay, y'all. Get the perfect gift right now. And happy holidays from Turtle Beach. Hang on. I'm familiar with Turtle Beach, but there's no transition here. Hey, do you guys hear a guest coming in? By guest, I mean normal recurring cast member.
From the Turtle Beach?
From the Turtle Beach, that's right. Oh, everybody, it was Kelsey Lewin that was knocking on the door.
A turtle.
Yeah, barely a turtle at all. She's more of a bird woman. Welcome, Kelsey Lewin. Thanks for swinging by.
Hi.
Hi. You're here because we need an expert on fun, first of all. But then also, sorry, I'm cracking myself up with these jokes. But Monster Hunter Wilds. Because, Charles, we talked about this on the podcast a couple, weeks ago it was. And you were on with Sarah and Kelsey, who are much more familiar with Monster Hunter. And we were being a little cheeky about, phrasing it like, oh, you were interested in getting into Monster Hunter. Meanwhile, we had a flight booked to Osaka, Japan for you to actually go out there and play the game thanks to Capcom. So you were desperately scrambling to get ready for having some amount of knowledge going into this trip. How was your prep sessions? Do you feel like once you got there, you feel like you were on good ground?
Yes, I had played. I was very glad I asked, and I kind of felt weird. In retrospect, I think going back to that episode, now that people know I went to Japan for it, it will make more sense for me being like, so like, why? What is it? What is it? Let me get in your head. Let me understand.
Who's the real monster here? Is what I want to know.
But no, the one that ended up grabbing me was Monster Hunter Rise.
Really?
I found approachable enough that I don't know. I didn't feel like there was too much going on that I couldn't understand. Even though I tried to start World a few times, and it's just like so front loaded with tutorials that it was like driving me crazy. I'm like, just let me play your game.
Yeah.
I don't need another tutorial. And Rise has a lot of tutorials you can just kind of skip through. And then I watched.
I think I agree with this for what it's worth, because like Rise has the writable Palamute thing, which is very similar to what you're going to be doing in Wilds. And that's not really like a thing in any other Monster Hunter game.
I can't imagine not having a mount in a Monster Hunter game, honestly.
Gotta trudge slowly in all your armor.
Ooh. And then there's a Polygon video, I believe Pat Gill narrates about like getting into Monster Hunter Rise, and he explains some things very well. And the weapon I really like was a longsword because it has a like spirit gauge. So whenever you hit with like a normal attack, you're charging up these like special attacks you have. And part of the block for me was like, I'm doing all this damage to this monster, but I can't see its health bar. I don't know how much progress I'm making. Having a like micro progress meter of like, if nothing else, I am hitting to charge up to do my big cool moves.
Right.
Was a big like dopamine thing for me to be like, okay, it feels good to do normal attacks because I'm charging this up. And after that, everything like clicked into place. And now I really like it.
Nice. And so you got to Osaka. I mean, full behind the scenes. You're a little iffy on the idea of going. Like, I don't know. It seems like a big trip. Seems scary. I don't really know Monster Hunter that well.
Yeah, aren't you kind of afraid of airplanes? Didn't we establish that earlier this year?
Well documented. I actually was mostly cured. I did manage to get a bunch of aisle seats. Helped a lot on all these planes.
Oh, okay.
Anytime it was bumpy, I'm like, at least I'm not in a helicopter over the Grand Canyon. And the other thing that helped me, I'll get to Monster Hunter in a second. The other thing that helped me, I never talked about because it never had a spot in the travelogue. One of the times on the planes home, we had turbulence. I had the music in my ear in shuffle, and the title theme for Sonic and the Black Knight came up. And it is this like really intense rock song. And it was right as the turbulence started, as if it was like a really epic part in a movie. And I was like, this is so stupid. Can you imagine giving so much narrative weight to a plane being kind of shaky? And now whenever turbulence happens, I put on like really epic music as if it's like a really intense scene in a movie, and it really dispels any seriousness I have of it.
It's the worst Universal ride you can imagine, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, kind of shaky.
So, to spoil the trip for you, you can check out the whole travelogue on MinnMax's YouTube channel. But by the end of it, you're like, oh wait, now I think I really like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, and I played Monster Hunter on the whole flight there.
Okay. Being
like, okay, this is fun. I like this now. I'm going to go into this new one. And now I'm like mad that I can't transfer my save from that other game. Because I did sit down. It was a very weird experience to go into this room with all these journalists. It's very plain. There's these big tables, and there's 4 PS5s on each table. You sit down there, and then just for 6 hours, you can just play as much of Monster Hunter Wilds as you want. You can't go past a certain story point.
Okay.
But for me to have been obsessively playing this game for a week, and then I get a new version of it, I lock in for 6 hours, and then by the time I leave, it's dark outside. I was like, oh, I forgot I was working. I was just really into playing Monster Hunter all day.
And it's also like, this is the classic Game Informer effect, and call it what you want, I get it, but we're only human. And like when you go to a studio that's filled with super talented people, and it's like, all right, your job is to only focus on this game as you play it for hours and hours and care a lot about it. Like, it is tough not to fall in love with any studio that you visit. It's a weird phenomenon. And so like touring Osaka and then touring Capcom, you feel like, all right, that's it. That is the push I needed to finally get into this franchise, is just seeing the amount of effort that's going into these games. Just a sliver of the amount of effort they're putting into it.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the coolest parts of the travelogue is we got these behind the scenes tours. We got to see the motion capture studio. We got to see the music studio where they said they like write all of their soundtracks in there, or they record a lot of them in there. So that was just like a cool thing to sit there and be like, oh, all the Ace Attorney happened here. And then they also have a... What was that?
I said, was Lydia Tarr there?
Kyle, I get that joke.
That's a joke for everybody.
Was that just a Tar reference?
I'll explain it later, Charles.
Okay. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought.
What?
We also saw the Foley studio. But it was a thing where the PR guy, I was talking to him, and he was like, yeah, we just wanted you guys to be able to like walk in the rooms and take some pictures. Like, that's all we asked for. And then it turned into like the heads of those studios being like, oh, let's put on like a little show for them. So we got to see all of the like presentations of like how they actually do stuff. So I appreciated them putting that extra effort in, and it was very, very cool to see.
Oh, that's sweet.
I really liked watching the mocap thing in the travelogue video. I was like, I mean, I know that these trips are very much for the developers and the publishers, and this is exactly what they want. They want you to be like, oh my god, that's so cool. So I know I'm playing right into their hands, but it was pretty cool to watch two people pretending to be a monster and a monster hunter, and like making the noises while they were doing the mocap. Yes. It was very entertaining.
My favorite part is there's a guy who's playing the monster Deshagama, which is kind of like a shaggy bear type thing. And later in the visit, we go to the Foley studio. We see where they make the sounds for the monsters. So they're not recording this guy's voice at all. And still, he is growling and roaring the whole time to stay in character as if it is part of the game. And I really appreciated his commitment there.
It's amazing. What was, like back at Game Informer, I got super lucky with Osaka where we were doing the Monster Hunter World cover story trip and the Mega Man 11 cover story trip back to back. Oh. And so it's like crunching the numbers. I got to make the case of like, it's actually cheaper to keep me in Osaka for like 3 weeks than to fly me back home. And so I just got to live in Osaka for a while, which was absolutely amazing. Thank you, GameStop. But yeah, it was very sweet to go visit that studio for Monster Hunter World and then go back and visit it for Monster Hunter World Iceborne with Jeff Cork both times and stuff. And like they were too ass kissy, but it was a bit much, but they were like, I'm curious how the developer messaging has worked out and how it's evolved. Because like back then it was literally like as on the nose as possible in a way that made me uncomfortable, but you know, it's a different culture. But they were like, hey, thanks for coming. What we need you to do is to spread the good word about Monster Hunter and to write really good articles and make really good videos, because the whole thing is it's Monster Hunter World, so we're a worldwide launch and we need Game Informer to help hype us up. And it's like, okay, thank you for putting it on Front Street in a way that no developer has. But then the really sweet part is, you know, when we came back for Iceborne, then, and again, this is the natural press ass kissing, which is unnecessary on the developer point of view, but they were like, you know what? Like Monster Hunter World was such a wild success, and we really credit Game Informer and you guys getting the message out to the world, and you coming out and doing those videos. And they specifically said
it was all you.
That they said like specifically it was the rapid fire interview, like that type of video. I feel like we got a whole new audience, and that's why it was a big hit. And I was like, oh, you guys, you just made Monster Hunter World. Game Informer had a microscopic element of 1% perhaps for getting that message out, but
it was probably like a streamer or something. If we're gonna credit one person.
But like I think in 2018 it's like if that was the case that Capcom made to the developers, and the way the developers felt at least is like worldwide audience, who's the biggest? Maybe the US? Okay, who's the biggest there? Magazines? Okay, who's the biggest there? Game Informer? Therefore, you know, it was a bizarre thing. But yeah, did you get much developer interaction, Charles?
Yeah, the main one was, so we had our day of playing, we got a tour of the studio, and then we went to a Monster Hunter themed pop-up bar.
Love it.
Was like somewhere in Osaka. And it was all of like the journalists that were there. There was like 14 or 15 of us. And then 3 of the producers of the series were there with some translators. And it was like it was kind of awkward.
Yep.
Ben, I feel like you would have done a way better job than anyone else there, because it was in the sense that it was all of us sitting in a room. And then also the developers were there, and they were kind of in their own little corner. And it's like, and you guys can talk to them as much as you want. And then everyone was like, okay, for now I'm just going to talk to the people I know. It's kind of awkward. Like, we just did stuff all day. And then eventually they started making their way around, and people came up to like the developers came out of the corner and was like talking to us, but I think they were expecting us to like rush them and like all ask them so many questions and be so excited to hang out, and instead it was just like a bunch of like awkward jet lagged people being like, so these mushrooms are pretty good. But eventually they did.
Because it's so tough. It's so tough. I hear you, because it's like you also don't want to inconvenience the translator, and it's just like everyone's just kind of shooting the S and making stupid jokes. And it's like, you don't need to translate me saying the weather is pretty nice today as I'm talking to Jan from Giant Bomb. But it's like it's the barrier of like what should we translate, and so that's really tough, because I do think it's helpful just to break the ice and just be like, translate this question. Like, just here you go. Here's something to them so we can maybe talk a little bit. But it's weird just to have like this social choke point on the translator to try and bridge that divide. I know that feeling really well, and it's really tough. Kyle, how do you get over that? You remember that vibe, right? Of like everybody's eager to talk to developers, but you just can't because of the language barriers?
Yeah, I mean, I never came up with a good system for it. You did it a hell of a lot more than I did. But yeah, I don't know. You just try to engage them as much as you just like focus on them, you know? Yeah. But it's tough.
Just don't, being polite while stuff is being translated. And like you ask a question and then you need to continue being polite for 3 times longer than you normally are, because you have to wait for it to go through all these layers. And it's like, if you're just looking away and looking down at your feet the entire time, it's like, well, of course that's not really engaging. So like that level is really tricky. But
the big breakthrough I had was with Hironobu Takeshita. He's one of the producers of the series. Came up and he was like, so where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Ohio. And he was like, oh, I actually know a lot of people from Ohio because a lot of our localization team was from Ohio. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, oh, I thought the only Ohio you would know is Ohio gozaimasu, which is good morning in Japanese.
No, Charles.
And Ben, it killed. They thought it was really funny.
I approve. I would have made that joke. I think that's great.
As if I had unlocked the like social, like I selected the right dialogue option. He pulled out his business card as if to reward me for saying the right thing.
With his wallet.
So I took his business card and then I gave him, I was like, oh, sure, let's exchange business cards. I gave him mine. And then like when someone gives you a business card, I never feel the need to look at it because I'm like, I know what it is. I know who you are. You've told me, and this is for contact later. He took his like reading glasses out. He was like, so what does this say? And I wanted to take a picture of him studying the MinnMax logo just because I thought it was very funny for him to be like, so what? Who are you again? What is this? I explained, Ohio gozaimasu. You like that state pun. Get ready for the MinnMax name state pun. And I think I lost him at every point after the one joke, but it was totally worth it to get the picture.
Good night, everybody. No, that's a big Japanese etiquette thing. Is business cards is like you can't just take it and put it in your pocket. It's like if somebody hands you a business card, the polite thing to do is you got to look at it very closely, flip it over, look at the other side. Like that's one of those small details that is just for Americans, it does not compute. It's like, what do you mean? You gave me something I put in my pocket. Who cares? But it's like, that's one of those secret big deals. But like, it was really nice. It just being able to go to Capcom's headquarters, when I was there a couple times, and just meeting these old legends and like going out and like singing karaoke and stuff. But it's like, there's a guy that we're singing karaoke with, and it's like, oh, he was the producer for Breath of Fire 3. Like went all the way back then and just talking about stuff in the 90s. And like my favorite was, it was late night at karaoke, and Jeff Cork and I were just tickled pink because this old timer from Capcom got up to sing a karaoke. It's like, what song is this guy going to sing? And it was Eric Clapton's Change the World. I could change the world. And so then the best part was then when we went back years later for Iceborne, he didn't remember that we had spent the last like 2 years joking about the fact that this guy just belted out Change the World as he had a few drinks in him. So then when we were at karaoke again, it's like, all right, putting it first in the queue, Change the World. And this guy like lit up like, how'd you know I love it? Change the World by Eric Clapton. All right, man, we got you. Okay, so the game itself, you played 6 hours, longsword here?
So I did longsword. I fought there's like 6 or 7 like main monsters you can do up until the like end point, which is a like colossal monster called Uthduna. And when I got to that boss, it was either you could beat the boss and then wipe your save and start over fresh if you wanted to like redo story stuff, or you can like cancel out of there and just kind of like mess around in the open world for the extra time. So I had probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours left. And I was like, okay, I've done longsword all this time. I'm going to switch to the hammer. And now I might be like Mr. Hammer Bro, because the hammer feels very good. There's something so primal about I'm going to hit you in the head with a really big thing and it's going to knock you out. It's just like weirdly violent and satisfying.
Yeah, I know like Ryozo over there, who is a producer. I don't know if you interact much with him, but I think he was the one who was obsessed with the hammer. It's like, I don't want to play with anything else. It's just nothing but hammer, and I've been working on this series for decades now.
Yeah, and I get it.
We were talking about this. I was talking about it with Kelsey and Haley. I can't remember when that conversation happened, but yeah, just being like, I played Monster Hunter World for like 100 hours. I used the greatsword for probably 95 of those hours, you know, where it was like, I got it. I just got to hit him twice really hard.
Yeah, I feel like you get some people, I do know some people that will trade around their weapons a lot, but I am definitely the type that just gets locked into a weapon. I'm like, I know this one. I understand this one. This is my weapon. I don't need to mess around with other stuff. So, yeah, I forget why we were talking about that, but it was in relation to I need to figure out how to have a second weapon that I'm fairly good with, since you do bring a second one around with you.
What I ended up doing was I had one weapon, like I had my longsword and then I had my fire longsword if something was weak to fire or something was not. Like you can just do the same weapon type but a different thing. So I was using it more to like cover elemental weaknesses than, because you have to get on your sacred to swap it. So sometimes it was clumsy of like, oh, he's far away, I want to use like a ranged thing, but it wasn't as like it was more of a tactical decision than like a quick decision than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So that was more of my approach.
Was there like a big surprise going in? Because I think you had dabbled with the beta, right?
Yeah, barely. Like okay. I knew more of what I was going. So the thing that I like about this game that the longsword did, and the thing I didn't really get before, is I was like, why doesn't it feel good to like hit the monster? Like, right. Why is that not a thing that is satisfying to me? There's a few things about it. One is knowing like where to hit the monster. Like there are weak points, there's spots you should like aim for. And then in this game, you create injuries when you hit the monster over and over again. And there's a little like focus strike you can do where if you just go ham on like this big frog's front left leg, then there'll be a giant glowing red spot and you can do a focus strike on it and it does like huge damage on and knocks him over. So there's reasons to like focus on different parts of the body. And then, so that's like another micro thing of like, okay, I haven't killed him. I'm not satisfied in that I have completed this, but I am satisfied in that I have created a new sub-objective for myself to hit this guy's tail a bunch and then it does it.
Perfect.
Plus the meter for the longsword. And then the hammer equivalent of that is like, there's a really big charge attack. And anytime I could land that, it's like when, it was like if I was playing Smash Bros. And I was just Captain Falcon doing Falcon Punch. It's like, ooh, if I hit you with one time with the Falcon Punch, you're gonna die. That was like how it felt with the hammer of like, if I can land this like twice on his head, he's gonna be unconscious for a while. So those were the things that like kept propelling me through it. And then also just the monsters were really cool. There was one called Lala Barina that is a spider boss. And I do not like spiders in video games. And I'm not saying I enjoyed Lala Barina in the sense that like I wasn't creeped out, but it was like a very creative kind of creepy. Like I respected it because, so it's a spider and it's got a big like white, what would it be? Abdomen, thorax, the third segment. But it like opens up into this like rose-like fur basically, so it goes from like white to red and it sprays these like little tufts of red all around that like paralyze people, and it's got like this huge red web in its lair. And it was a moment where I was like, I don't know, I had a newfound respect for monster design with that one specifically, because I was like, this is nuts.
That does look sweet. So just after 6 hours, you're getting more in the groove, finding the patterns, finding the weapons, stuff like that. Like, was there anything about like the structure of the game, or I don't know, just like, the reactions people were having, what was popping in the room that kind of stood out to you?
I don't know that I would say much was popping in the room. It was kind of awkward and
clinical.
Quiet. Like, we couldn't play together. I think that was the other thing.
What?
If we were playing together, there would have been more of a reaction.
They blew it.
Yeah.
How's that work?
We were all playing solo. You can call like for aid from like NPCs. So I was doing that a bunch of fights. So I was playing like with other characters in the base camp that you interact with.
Okay.
And the other thing about it is we were just playing quality mode. We weren't playing performance mode, even though that's what I would normally prefer. So we were just locked in quality.
And you're on PS5?
Yes, everyone was on PS5.
Okay, interesting. And it was running okay?
Yeah, I didn't feel any. I think it didn't blow me away visually. Like the quality mode, I was like, it felt more like this isn't 60 FPS than this is really, really cool visually. It was perfectly fine. I don't know. It wasn't like upsetting to me or anything, but it was, I don't know. I've seen more impressive games. It was definitely more of a, like, when you're up close and personal with stuff, it is less impressive than when you're seeing like the big like views as you're like going out into an open field or something.
Right.
The monsters all looked good.
Yeah. Was it PS5 Pro by chance?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
But you can tell, right? It's got like a belt.
Yeah, it's
cummerbund.
Of course, everybody knows it has that belt.
Right.
Yeah. No, I hope the PC version just blows us away. Once it actually gets out there, or the PS5 Pro version, because like the demo that I saw at SGF looks so damn good. It's like if I could just play that game, and a lot of it's coming from the weather effects and stuff like that. Less like look at this character's face and that type of nonsense.
Yeah. The weather. Speaking of which, I don't know if you have to get farther in the game for it to be a thing, but where I was at, the weather was all like story based. So like when there was a big story event, there would be like a weather thing. I bet when you get further in the game, it becomes more of like an emergent gameplay thing. But it is like a big deal the first time there's a lightning storm and like the seasons change and then the environment's a little bit different.
Right.
And so that's, first 6 hours, it wasn't a big deal. I didn't hunt any monster more than maybe 2 or 3 times. So I wasn't like getting sick of the same environments, and everyone runs around a bunch too. But,
sure.
That is one thing I'm excited to see more of organically, as opposed to the like plot specific stuff. Those did look cool though. Like it's a cool like blue sky in the desert.
Yeah. Kelsey, are you in the camp of like, it's Monster Hunter, it's going to be a better version of it, just give it to me? Or are there big like question marks for this game for it? Okay.
I don't know. I like this series so much, and it has never disappointed me, and it's almost never taken like a really big swing. I feel like World was maybe the closest to actually changing things up, but like really most of what changes from game to game, other than like there's cool new monsters in this one and this area is a little different, is really just quality of life stuff. And having played the demo, it's like, okay, I get what these quality of life things are. Like, you've got your sacred now, you've got the ability to bring a second weapon. And then a lot of the other stuff that persists was introduced in earlier games, like, not having to make hot drinks before you go to the ice area and that sort of thing. So, when you said the big monster at the end of your demo, is that one of those, like, it's not just a regular monster, you're doing like a more tower defense-y or something like that kind of big monster?
Structure-wise, it was the same, but I think the way they talked about it, I think they were classifying it as a colossal monster or something like that, where it was...
But you still go run up to it and hit it with a sword rather than...
Because World's big monster, you were like platforming on top of it. Like you were running around and like hitting weak points on like essentially a landmass.
Zoro Gorath, what was that freak's name? Yeah.
No, we all remember.
Okay.
And then there's been other ones where it's structured, like a more like a tower defense kind of thing, where like the monster is breaking through your defenses and you're hitting it with like cannons and stuff before it gets anywhere near you.
Zora Magdaros for everyone at home. Everyone can relax. It's Zora Magdaros.
I wasn't crazy about the tower defense stuff in Rise, but that might just be me. I sometimes a game tries to introduce a different mode. I'm like, this is a different game. I like the other game that we were playing before. Why would I play a different separate game?
Yeah.
I assume Rise has less of a story than other games, but I'm just assuming that because there was so little of it. Wilds, I was like, actually like, okay, I know these characters and they have distinct personalities and I like them. And in Rise, I was actively skipping through dialogue and not really caring about what people had to say. And in Wilds, I was like, okay, I want to go to this place to see what happens next in the story. It wasn't like mind-blowing, but I was like engaged in it in a way that I was not in the past game.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed my time with Monster Hunter World, but that story was always like, okay, what is this? What is this nonsense? We gotta get this out of here.
You just skip dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never
that's
cared about it. I think that if there ever is a really good story in Monster Hunter, I'm never going to know about it.
Yeah.
It'll just come and go without me even understanding that people liked the story.
Yeah. So Monster Hunter Wild's coming out February 28th, 2025. February of 2025 is going to be a wild one. We have Avowed from Obsidian, the big RPG. Oh, wow. Assassin's Creed Shadows, Civilization 7, that's going to be a juggernaut. Oh, wow. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Lost Records, some smaller ones there towards the end there, but I mean, just Avowed.
And Yakuza, like a pirate, whatever, will have come out like the last week in January.
Okay. Oh boy, it's going to be fun, everybody. But yeah, that's when Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out. Charles, thank you for going on the big journey of a lifetime to make that happen, man.
Thank you for sending me. It was great, and I mostly didn't embarrass myself.
Hey, that's all I ask for, really.
You didn't mention it in your travelogue, but how big of a problem was being tall?
I don't think I hit my head once in the Capcom store, but that was more because I was bending over than there was like a low hanging thing.
Okay.
It was more of a thing where I noticed like the average height of a person in the US, they like come up to like my jawline maybe, and here it was like shoulders. So I was like, oh, I'm really sticking out above the crowd. If someone needed to know where something is, it's like I can actually see it very clearly from where we are. It's over there.
So you're already tall enough in the United States that it wasn't actually different, because you're already
I went from feeling like a tall person to a tall something else, if that makes any sense. Like I was here I'm a tall person among other Americans, and just being in a different country, it was like I also like being black. Like I just know people look at me and they're like, this guy is a different creature than the rest of us. Not that they would use that terminology, but just I felt very different. But it was you figured it out.
Okay. Good time in Japan overall?
Yes.
About what you expected?
I have no idea what I expected. There was a lot of times where people were like, yeah, I was just going to hang around in my hotel room this morning, but it's Japan. I want to see the sights. And I'm like, I'm in Japan. That's the adventure. I don't need to add on more adventures to the adventure I already did. The last day I was there, I was like not homesick, but like ready to eat food from home, and I was like, there's a Shake Shack pretty close to here.
Oh no.
So my last meal in Japan was I walked to the Shake Shack, tried to eat in, but then all the seats were full, and I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to stand. This is really awkward. So I ended up just getting a bag and then taking it back to the hotel.
That's cool. You're allowed. Check out the travelogue for some more journeys.
That's not in the travelogue. That's an exclusive. that was a day where I'm like, this can't go in the travelogue because it's not interesting and far too embarrassing. But the rest of it is good.
All right, awesome. Speaking of the rest of it being good, do you guys remember? God, was this last year when Pizza Tower came out, which is kind of that homage to Wario Land, and everyone was gaga over it, and the art style was kind of Ren and Stimpy-ish, over the top. There's a game that just came out called Antonblast, and Kyle and I just started it today. I appreciated the art of Pizza Tower, but I didn't really get into it. Antonblast, I started it today. It feels like everything that was great about Pizza Tower and then upping it, from my perspective at least. Like, it makes the art of Pizza Tower seem sane and subdued. It is ridiculous for this 2D platformer. But Kyle, have you been enjoying Antonblast so far?
Yeah, I've only played through the first 2 levels, so I haven't played it a lot. But I had a similar reaction where Pizza Tower I played, and I was like, this is like a nightmare or something. Like in a way that I am complimenting it. Like it is as horrifying as Silent Hill in a way that felt somewhat intentional. And it's so specific. Like it's like this era of 16-bit video games that was like Boogerman and Genesis.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then WarioWare mechanics. And Antonblast is like so similar that it's surprising that these 2 studios like had ultimately kind of a similar gameplay idea. Like which maybe I'm not aware of this because I love Wario Land, the first Wario Land on Game Boy. I played that game a ton, but I didn't really do a ton of the sequels. has Wario Land always been a like go to the end and then speed your way back after that first game?
I believe Wario Land 4, which is the one on Game Boy Advance, right, Kelsey? I believe.
That is the one on Game Boy Advance.
Okay, I think that's the one that has the...
I don't know if I can answer the other part of that question.
No, that's fine. I think that's the one that has like the big run back thing.
Okay,
which
because it's like even that I was like, they're both doing this.
I know, yeah, it is wild. And but the part that fascinates me, and in this one they call it the happy hour, which is a silly idea. Like, all right, just run back, it's happy hour, everybody. But it's so wild to think of like the sensibility of Wario and the character of Wario now influencing the game design and the visuals of these two separate games like 20 years later, I guess more than 20 years, where they both like, okay, Wario sensibilities, that means in the indie space, kind of Sega Genesis, Nickelodeon zaniness. But like how
CDI, like visual game, like there's like just this weird tone that they just like nailed that I don't even know exactly how to explain it, but it's like this, that you could pinpoint this to an exact video game year somehow, these two games.
Right. But I've been really impressed by it. Like big levels, and they just for a 2D platformer with like just a couple buttons, they really pack in a lot of combos, a lot of moves. It's a little bit like Wario Land in that way, as opposed to like trying like, okay, this is the different thing, then you can bounce down to get a jump up if you go this way, and then you can turn into a ball if you're on a slope and it goes down this way. But yeah, I've just been early on, but I have really been blown away by Antonblast so far. Like the presentation is wild. You should take a look at it at some point. Like the whole pitch early on is it's basically Satan as if he was the evil queen in Snow White, and it turns out that the one person, who is it that's more raunchy than him or something?
Red.
Okay, Red. Yeah, just pulls out his
reddest of them all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he steals their stuff, and then the point is you want to get your stuff back from Satan. But it is awesome, and just like collectibles up the butt of just like, poker chips are kind of the coins in the game, but they're just flying everywhere, and just getting a big pile of those as you're streaming through the level and flying, and this wild old Nickelodeon looking art. Like I
like it too, to be clear, and I think similarly, I do like it more than Pizza Tower, like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
For ways that I would have to play more to sort of vocalize, but also like the dialogue is weird. It's like vulgar, like in a way that I wasn't expecting, because it's such a cartoonish game. But you meet this guy who's like, you can't come back to the bar, you never paid your tab, and I was like, oh, we're talking about alcohol here, and like it was. I mean,
Wario canonically drinks in Japan.
In Japan,
they make
really?
Yeah, they make references in some of the Japanese game to.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it's all above the board. Yeah, you thought it was just a tasteful game about Satan. I get it.
I just thought it would just be like cartoony goofiness, but it was kind of like, I don't know. The profanity surprised me.
Yeah.
Is what it was. It's just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and I was offended. Frankly.
I get it. I understand that, and then I took that personally. I mean, for me, I'm trying to think of like, you're not counting like Metroidvanias, but like, I think this is the coolest 2D platformer I've played all year. I'm trying to think of what else.
Year? Well, I mean, are you talking Prince of Persia? You're saying
outside of Metroidvanias,
Yeah. It also reminded me quickly, before I forget, of Splosion Man. Which
is
a game that I really love. I love Splosion Man and Miss Splosion Man, and I was kind of getting some of those vibes from this in a way that I wasn't expecting, but really appreciated.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, it's out on Switch and on PC for Antonblast there. But yeah, I definitely want to keep playing more of this thing. They just don't stop releasing good games this year. They refuse to do it. All right. Hey, Kelsey. They also don't stop releasing good games earlier in the year and then letting us finally catch up on them. Like 6 months ago. Until then, this is a game that it's also another one that is plagued by a similar title, where I looked at this and I was like, oh, it's kind of like a Space for the Unbound, where it's another like narrative heavy pixelated game. This one takes place in the Philippines, whereas Space for the Unbound was Indonesia. But I saw it and I was probably too dismissive, Kelsey, of like, oh, it's like Space for the Unbound, but it's probably not as good. Moving on. But you've been going back and checking out Until Then?
Yeah, so I genuinely just didn't even hear of this game when it came out. Just completely slipped under my radar. And I saw it. I was looking at the Indie Game Awards, which, full disclosure, MinnMax is a judge for. And I, just going through the things that I like hadn't really crossed by me or interest me, and I was like, okay, well, like, let me look at some of these like narrative awards and like emotional impact and stuff for the nominees. And so I was clicking on all of these, and I had the same idea for what it's worth. I was like, this does look like Space for the Unbound, which I never finished. I started it as like a homework thing over the holiday, I think, last year, and never finished it. But I was like, this looks interesting. I really like. I'm finding out new things about myself, and I think that I have discovered that I really like slice of life with science fiction. Like, I think that's just a narrative thing that works for me every time. So this is a story about, it's set in the Philippines, like you said. It's a bunch of high school friends, and they're starting to experience some like strange memory things. There was a big natural disaster called the Ruling. And ever since then, there's been some strange disappearances and people having issues with their memories. And so it's set in this kind of like disaster sci-fi kind of thing, but life is moving on. But the game itself ends up being a lot more about like just friendships, and it's difficult to describe these games that are just a lot of text and a lot of story, but it's about kind of like friendship and loss and grieving, and has a lot of interesting things to say about those things as this kind of like sci-fi mystery is playing out almost in the background. Like, it's almost not the point of the game. And it gets weirdly like spooky at certain points, and then not spooky at all at other certain points where you're like, is this going to dip into horror? No, it's not. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting tone. It is a game that you'll get to the end and it will ask you, and it's like just a really emotionally impactful ending. I won't spoil which emotion, because I think that'll...
Interesting.
I think that is a spoiler in and of itself. But you actually play through the game 3 times to get the true ending. And the second and third playthrough will be a little bit different and shorter, which you will appreciate, because I think the first playthrough is like 9 hours. So I was getting a little worried. I was like, I don't know that I have almost 30 hours at the end of the year right now, but it didn't quite take me that long. But yeah, just it's very text heavy. It takes place in like, I think it's 2014, which is a little bit after I graduated high school, but it's still kind of the same. Like, I ended up feeling a lot of nostalgia playing this game, just in the way that the characters, like, you use your phone a lot in the game, mostly just for like texting your friends and scrolling like the Facebook equivalent in this game. Yeah. And just the way that these friends talk to each other and communicate with each other on the Facebook-esque platform and everything is like, it was really hitting for me. So if you graduated somewhere around, 2010 through 2016, probably, I think that'll probably hit for you too. But yeah, really, really great game if you like these kind of very narrative heavy. There's not a lot of actual gameplay in it. There's some like mini games and some rhythm games and stuff in it, but it's a lot of kind of, you walk across the screen this way, interact with this, right? Kind of, more of a visual novel kind of thing. But,
yeah, there's a space for that. Yeah.
My only real issue with it, because I thought the story was fantastic, my only real issue is just it drags out a little bit. The text really needs to move a little faster. The scenes need to transition a little faster. There's definitely a lot of like, if this was a movie, I'd get hanging on this frame for a really long time, but I'm looking at pixel art and I get it. Let's go. Let's move on to the next.
Probably also the time of the year you're playing it as well. Like, I got a lot to play. Come on, Until Then. Let's go. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Until Then? I just want to get the name.
Until Then.
Until Then, yeah. It's sitting at overwhelmingly positive on Steam, and it's on PS5 and PC for Until Then. I mean, making your top 10, you think, Kelsey?
I think it's got a shot.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's going to be in top 5 or anything, but I think it's got a real shot at kind of the lower part of my top 10. It's a really good story.
Right on.
If you were to give this game an ESRB rating, what would you give it, Kelsey?
T?
Okay.
Very important for people with
daughters. Is this a trick question?
Would you say it has comic
No, my
mischief?
daughter loved The Space for the Unbound, so I just wanted to make sure that it was appropriate.
Yeah, and no character
recommended. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's high schoolers doing high school stuff. If she's easily scared, there's a couple of points in there where I was like surprised that it was kind of creepy, but then it gets uncreepy again, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet. Until then is the name of that one. Real quick, just because the game could use some more love, but at GDC, Haley and I toured this whole indie game thing where they're showing off a ton of different indie games. We're like, we're going to find the game that we most want to play out of this entire space. And we both landed on this game called Cylinder. And I completely missed. I just looked it up like, hey, is that Cylinder game out? It came out a little while ago and I completely missed it. But it's called Cylinder Puzzles Returned. Terrible name. I get it. But I'm a sucker for this type of thing where it is, Kelsey, hope you're sitting down. It is Pokemon Puzzle League. You remember how you could play basically panel to pawn of like rotating the tiles like on the cylinder in Pokemon Puzzle League if you played in 3D mode? But everybody who's a normal human being would switch it to 2D mode where it's just more efficiently panel to pawn and it's better. Imagine that, but in the worst mode of playing on the cylinder like in Pokemon Puzzle League.
Wow.
Okay, exactly
compelled.
what I was hoping to hear. Yeah, so I'm just a sucker for any competitive puzzle game. So I was playing this with my wife, and it is damn fun. So like the twist is instead of panel to pawn or Pokemon Puzzle League, where you're swapping 2 horizontal things, you're now swapping 4 and rotating 4 as you're trying to make chains and having it all come down and stuff as the things are going down, popping up, all that fun stuff. But it's got just a great presentation. There's a demo for it on Steam if you want to check it out. But like, getting to like high score attacks in multiplayer, we're having a lot of fun with that. So Cylinder Puzzles Returned, if you like competitive puzzle games, is an option for you. It's again, demo on Steam if you want to check it out. Hey, Charles, I appreciate you being here. You know who else I appreciate being here?
Today's sponsor?
Well, every day at MinnMax, Charles, I know you're kind of like new here, but like we don't really have sponsors per se. We are sponsored each and every day by the thousands of people supporting us on Patreon. So we like to celebrate them over these corporations.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So the human beings, everybody. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. All of those new supporters, thank you so much for jumping in, supporting this whole independent operation we have rolling here for unlocking benefits, jumping in that Discord, unlocking the bonus Patreon exclusive podcast feed where Bonus Pod is in there and early access to this podcast, early and ad-free access. Thanks for unlocking a benefit. You keep this whole operation afloat. Yeah, we've had, it's been a good couple weeks. Like, you know, it's the most fascinating thing in the world to me. 5 years of doing this, of like, you can feel like when I'm kind of flooring it, and I feel like we're all pumping out a lot of content, and you can see like the numbers going up for new Patreon supporters. It's like, okay, I can track the effort in and then the numbers going up here. And this, every once in a while, it's like, something's happening. I'm not doing this. We're like, over the last couple weeks, I feel like we've had a lot of people jump in on Patreon. It's like, oh, there's a momentum building here that feels unbelievably great and means that we can stick around longer, and you made this whole operation even more sustainable. So everybody jumping in, we appreciate that. But thanks to new people who might be on the fence, go ahead, jump on in, give it a try for 1 month, jump in at the $2 tier. We greatly appreciate it. You can unlock a benefit that's good for you. And Charles, we should also thank our sponsor.
Okay.
Of course, I'm talking about I Am 8-Bit, truly the finest around, the finest sponsor in the land. You can check out I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. They've been supporters of MinnMax for a very long time, and we greatly appreciate it. They want everybody to know that in their store, things have been restocked and there's discounts because they have a huge Black Friday holiday event. So if you've ever checked out I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, which you should because it genuinely rules, and you saw like, oh, they have some great vinyls, they have some great physical editions, but it's sold out. Check it right now because they have a huge event going on where things are being restocked, discounts all over the damn place. So if you order stuff, they can guarantee delivery of all in-stock items, they say, by ordering by December 8th. Apparently is going to be a bit of a cutoff for getting the wave of stuff out there. But if you want the discounted items, you want to see what's in stock, you can check out I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. A huge sale going on there for the Black Friday holiday event. And you can, of course, use the promo code for December. This is new. 10% off everything in the wonderful online store if you use the promo code. The name again is Mr. Plow. All one word. The name again is Mr. Plow. Thanks to I Am 8-Bit, 10% off everything in the wonderful online store. Help support I Am 8-Bit because they support the MinnMax community in a big bad way by shipping out a prize to whoever has the best question submitted over there on Patreon. Whoever has the best question this week, as we so deem it, will win the Stray double vinyl soundtrack. So yeah, we have some big companies supporting us, Charles, but when they're as cool as I Am 8-Bit, it's peachy keen, you know? And don't make me
There-
choose between Turtle Beach and I Am 8-Bit, Charles. I refuse to choose who I appreciate more. But it's I Am 8-Bit. Okay, here we go. Y'all ready for these community questions? Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Jake Eckert writes in and says, do you believe it's better to return or not return to your childhood video games? Is it better to just let them be a fond memory? I recently have been considering buying a PS2 to revisit my first console, but I'm worried those games won't be as magical as I thought they were when I was 7. Just don't look. Never buy it. Don't boot up the old games, and everything will be exactly as magical as you remember it forever, and you can die a happy man, Jake.
I don't know. I've always been a proponent of, like, I don't think, like, revisiting something from your childhood and being like, oh, this is bad, doesn't, like, ruin my original memories of it. Like, I have been going on this tear where I've been watching Star Trek The Next Generation, which is like a very nostalgic show for me that I watched when I was a kid. And I watched and I booted up the Star Trek The Next Generation Super Nintendo game on like an emulator, which is this impossible to understand game. I don't know how my brother figured it out. Like, it makes zero sense. But just that whole process of like going back to it was, I don't know, it just filled me with a lot of joy. Even though playing it I was like, I don't know how we made any progress in this game when I was a kid. This game is impossible. So like, I think it's fun to revisit that kind of stuff, but maybe I'm crazy.
I think like the only way it isn't fun is if you really like hype it up to somebody. Like, dude, this game holds up so well. You gotta play this game for the Game Gear. This is the one that's actually sweet. And then if you have that pressure on, you're gonna fall on your face every damn time.
Yeah. Like, I tell people to stay away from GoldenEye at this point in my life, like, you know, but I still have a lot of love for that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. I don't think that not liking a game as much now, or it being less magical now, like, ruins my memories of it being magical. So I still like doing that just because I think it's just kind of fun to know, like, how do I feel about this game now? And like, but you have to go in with like no expectation that it will be even remotely magical. Like, it has to just be like a curiosity as opposed to like I'm diving back into the greatest thing ever that I've ever experienced.
Yep. And it's so funny just to feel like a lot of it comes with the controls, especially like the PS2, PS1 era, you know, of just going back and be like, how did I ever get used to these controls? How was nothing standardized? What a freak show. And just the things that you quietly put up with that you don't realize. But again, yeah, from the right perspective, it's all charming and wonky.
A lot of those games for me are like Game Boy games, which like the controls are the same every time. It's fine.
Right, right.
I just think it's good to like play older games in general. I just think that kind of only benefits you as like someone who appreciates games to just be like, just go back, think about them, you know, like, and like playing Metal Gear Solid 1 for the first time, it is like a woof, these controls, but also it's like, if you play that game for long enough, you are not thinking woof, these controls every minute, you know. It's like you do get there, and it's like when the developers weren't making it, they weren't like, we're gonna make this game have bad controls. And so I think like, you know, it is, I just think it's like, it's good for your kind of gaming cultural sense to play old stuff. And if the way you do that is by like picking your favorites and going back to them after 20 years, awesome, you know, it's a great place to start.
Sniper Wolf. Paul Sharp writes in and say, hey, everybody, let's travel back to your early video game memories. What is the video game music that gives you the warmest, fuzziest, nostalgic feelings from back in the day? Paul Sharp says, mine is either Dire Dire Docks from Mario 64, or maybe those opening notes when you boot up GoldenEye. Yeah, like that, like the really, sorry, Kyle, he's going back, and he's getting joy out of the music, at least, from GoldenEye.
I think it's the you know, intro movie, the attract screen for Smash Bros. Melee.
Oh, yeah.
You know, na 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 da 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 da, and the hand
where, like,
throwing
cuts,
the Mario.
You know?
Yeah.
I think about that is edited so well. I like still think about that kind of start screen. I just think it's like such a cool kind of filmmaking.
And after watching Sakurai's YouTube channel, we're convinced that he was actually cutting the film himself in a Victrola. Yeah. For me, it's I'm trying to think, because it was like, you know, I played a lot on Apple II, and all of that music on the Apple II is useless. You know, maybe Old Lang Syne or whatever, an Oregon Trail was a standout banger. But like my friend who had a Game Boy, specifically, like that music coming from the Game Boy was incredible, but specifically the opening music for Donkey Kong Land 2. Like the title screen, which is just, it's the Hook main theme, but I loved Hook at the time. So I just remember holding the Game Boy up.
Donkey Kong Country 2 or Land?
Land 2 on the Game Boy.
Oh, which is on Switch as of like this week.
I know, I need to boot it up. It's the same soundtrack as Country 2, I believe. You know, Diddy's Conquest. But just holding that. Game
Boyified.
Yeah, but holding that Game Boy up to my ear and being like, video games can make good music. Look at this, everybody. Marvin Berry.
I think mine is Wii Sports.
Ooh, okay.
I think it's one I didn't play Wii Sports a whole lot on my own, so it's not one I like. A lot of soundtracks, like I really liked Super Mario Galaxy as a kid, but I played that. I've revisited that enough that it is nostalgic, but it's more of like, yeah, I remember when I played this a few years ago, as opposed to like way back when. I haven't played Wii Sports in a while, but just like the title screen and then just the sounds of like clicking through the stuff, that's like super nostalgic.
I get it.
Yeah, I think all of mine they're probably all Nintendo 64 games, just because that's kind of like the exact sweet spot of like sitting in my basement I had like an aquarium print beanbag. And just like this is just the coziest memory of like sitting on this beanbag in a dark basement and hearing like, you know, the opening to Mario Kart 64 or the opening to Pokemon Stadium 2 with the spotlights coming on and the different Pokemon showing up and being like, ah, it's very, I don't know, I think it's just, it ends up being like not necessarily the best music or the coziest music or whatever. It's just like there is a certain time in your life where whatever music you were listening to from those games, it's just that. It's that chunk.
Yeah. Yep. And then you jumped into the N64 games and entered your name as Linus and hit start and you were ready to go. Do you want to comment on that story from your mom, Kelsey, during the charity stream?
Yeah, if you don't want to expand on that, that was nah. When I was a little younger than that, probably like 3 or 4 years old or something like that. I would carry around this blue blanket that my grandma made for me, and I apparently introduced myself to the neighbors as Linus. So a lot of people thought my name was Linus when they met my mom for the first time.
Because you were all in on Peanuts, like Linus fan number 1?
I guess. Yeah, I think my dad was kind of like the comic, but we read like the Sunday comics together kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure this was just like implanted on me somehow. Like, I don't think as a 3-year-old I was like, yes, the Peanuts, my favorite thing. Like, I think it was just like, that's what I did with
children.
Yeah. I think that's just like what I did in the mornings was we read the comic strips together and probably watched like the Christmas specials and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, Linus is objectively the coolest, so it makes sense.
Yeah, he's very smart.
That's right.
And I like to think of myself as a very smart kid. So.
There we go. Don't question everybody. Leaf Dion writes in, they say, no question here, just a congrats on Charles's Osaka trip. 10 out of 10 travelogue, guy, they say. So there you go.
Guy.
Here we go, guy. And then Suzaku Watsu says, great video, Charles.
Oh, Charles is really offended by it.
Yeah, he dropped out for a second. Great video, Charles. In the video, Charles visits Den Town, which he says is known for retro games. I was wondering if Kelsey knew more or could speak on the history of Den Town in Osaka.
Yeah, a little bit. So I'm not like a Japanese historian or anything, but Osaka in general was like an industrial era pre-World War II, still kind of is. It was bombed pretty heavily during World War II, and then it was kind of reborn, as they were reworking all of Japan to make it a powerhouse again. It was kind of reborn as like a hub for electronics and electronic recycling and repair. And like, as far as I know, to this day, there's still a bunch of stores there where you can just buy like very specific parts. Like, I need this coil for this piece of electronics. I need this specific motherboard. And so I think the retro games just kind of like sprung out of that because it was already like an electronics hub that came out of post-World War II Japan. It's also, I think, where Sharp is headquartered in. Like Sharp Electronics is headquartered in Osaka. And there's one more big one. Panasonic, I think. So there's there's like it just kind of became this like electronics area, and I think that just lent itself really well to other kinds of electronics and hobbyist stuff.
Yeah. Did you get any games there, Charles, when you were there?
I did not. As I was there, I was like, I don't actually have any like. I've kept most of the like important games to me over the years, so there's nothing that I was like really looking for.
Well, you need the like Japanese version of all your favorite games, though. That's the next level, man. Sorry.
I was like, I've mentioned before that I found like my girlfriend's dad's old box of video game consoles, so I like recently came into possession of a PlayStation 1, 2, a Super Nintendo, and a Nintendo 64. So now I'm like looking at cartridges and stuff for those games, being like, oh, I could actually have that. But then I was like, I don't actually know enough about the N64 to know if I can just grab Japanese Mario 64 and it'll work or whatever.
I can help you with that.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
So for the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64, this is kind of cool. So the way they used to do, they don't really do region locking anymore. Like that's just not really a thing. But for a very long time, they would region lock consoles mostly because stuff came out in Japan first. And so they didn't want to like screw over their US distributors by making it so like, oh, you can get Super Mario 64, 6 months early if you just pre-order it from Japan and ship it over here. So they would make things region locked, but the way they did it in a lot of cases, at least with those two consoles, was they literally just made the cartridges a different shape and they wouldn't physically fit in your console. So for both of those systems, it's super easy. You can like open it up and tear out two little like plastic tabs, and then they'll just fit in there and work.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
There you go, piece of cake. Let's see. Eloy Cully writes in. They say, hey, I just wanted to chime in saying you missed an opportunity to work the term Wild Hearts into the video title in some way. A reference to Charles Hart. And then, of course, everybody's favorite Monster Hunter clone from last year, Wild Hearts. That Kelsey, you might be the last person alive.
And you
who
could say
remembers Wild Hearts.
Sayonara.
Yeah, there's a lot of good opportunities there where we missed, but unfortunately we'll never get to it. Thor's Throne. What are you doing here, Thor's? Thor's Throne. It's spelled differently, I'll have you know. Okay. They write in and say, do you guys ever think about Jacob's argument against Spider-Man 2 during last year's GOTY debate that it was too much fun? I do remember that.
I stand by it.
I do remember that. It still makes me mad to this day. Yeah, it's just too consistently fun of a video game. We can't celebrate it.
When's the last time you thought about Spider-Man 2, Ben? Like a specific level in Spider-Man 2?
Great question. Specific level. I was just thinking the other day of like, oh, I never 100%ed that. I should go back and do that at some point. So
you thought about the fact that you didn't play the game for as long as you thought you were going to.
Charles, back me up, Spider-Man fan. I need you. He's attacking the fun of Spider-Man. Get him.
I thought about Spider-Man 2 yesterday.
Yeah, Jacob.
I think about Spider-Man probably more than is healthy. So
King Prometheus writes in and says, hey everybody, no question, just another plug for the MinnMax Discord. Come on, King Prometheus. They say the Game Awards are around the corner, and in the Game Awards channel in MinnMax's Discord, you can find a Google Doc form to fill out to predict how the Game Awards will go. Come prove the MinnMax community is in fact the smartest around. There we go. So you can win a prize there, I believe, if you fill it out correctly for the Game Awards.
I was so excited with the What's MinnMax playing list that went up last week, where it was like number 1 was 1,000 Times Resist and number 4 was 9 Souls, and I was like, it's all coming up.
It's working.
Numbers only games.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Villas writes in and says, hey Hanson, will you feel irrational embarrassment if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth sweeps the Game Awards? Yes, I will. As much as I love that game, I do not want it to win a ton of Game Awards. I mean, I'd be happy for the developers, but if that game sweeps at the Game Awards, which there's a chance it will, the amount of backlash that game gets, which right now I would consider unbearable, I feel like will quintuple at least. Everyone will come out with complete knives the size of Buster swords as they attack this game. So for the game's sake, I hope to God it just wins music and then bows out politely. That would be a best case scenario, I think. Do you guys think it could win Game of the Year from Game Awards? A lot of people played it.
I'll be disappointed.
It's
nominated.
nominated.
A lot of people played it, Ben. That's why it won't win.
If
it was
it's going
nominated.
by a lot of people played it, it's going to be Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah.
Like,
good name.
that's
No, but it has to be a lot of Americans played it because
Right.
that's mostly who's voting in the Game Awards.
Well,
Balatro.
Yeah.
I hope it's Balatro.
Number 1 on the App Store.
maybe interesting. Deuterado writes in saying, "Howdy, crew. This is an odd way to put it. Do y'all prefer wet or dry desserts? Wet desserts or dry
example?
desserts?
Pie is a wet dessert, right?
Yeah.
I think pie counts as a wet. Yeah, especially
Okay.
like an apple pie.
And
That's
then
wet as
wet.
hell.
But I don't want like a pudding for dessert.
I would take a pudding.
Like I don't want like a completely wet dessert.
What about?
I think my answer is generally dry, but I do like a creme brulee a lot.
okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ho, 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 how French of you.
That's like a wet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like the,
crunchy on top if you do it right.
What is a warm chocolate chip cookie?
that's
Dry.
dry.
I think
But it's like,
generally
but
dry.
you want it to be kind
Yeah.
of wet.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can
Like, because you want it
Yeah.
to have, like, be gooey.
order it extra wet, and then it might be
don't-
just fine.
I don't think there's a single dessert that is I would classify as like bone dry that sounds appealing.
What about like a
A chocolate
candy?
bar, maybe?
Yeah.
Candy cane? Yeah.
block
I
of
don't
sugar?
But I don't want a biscotti for dessert. That's like a thing I dip in my coffee to make it wet so
Right,
that
good
it's
point, good
good.
point.
Hang on, best dry dessert.
I think
Sahara.
I think to Kelsey's point, you can have a 100% wet dessert, and I think that can be good. Like a hot chocolate or something where it's like just straight liquid.
Yeah.
But I think 100% dry is like, what is that? Like graham cracker crumbs? Like it's gotta you gotta have some percent wet, but you don't have to have some percent dry.
I just got for dessert during that EverQuest dinner, which you can see during the MinnMax spotlight there. We got for dessert like that. What is like the chocolate volcano dessert thing, where it's just like a fudge thing, then you pop it open, and it's just gooey chocolate magma spewing over a plate. It's as wet as you could hope for a dry dessert. It was delicious.
As wet as you could hope for. Always hoping for wetter.
Jared Arana.
Jacob, you're also thinking of wet steaks for this whole conversation.
Oh, yeah, sloppy
Sloppy steaks.
Yeah.
That's not a dessert, guys. That's
Yeah, no.
not if you eat it.
that's a wet dinner.
Hang on, Salsa by the Sea with the appropriate name in Backstage Pass. I said, isn't all good food a little wet?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because like I can't think of anything that is bone dry that sounds appetizing.
Chips.
Oh,
pretzels.
But aren't they better with dip?
Yeah, but only because they're so dry. It's like whoosh. It's like
Yeah,
dipping
it's
your
like
toe
I will
after
eat,
hitting lava.
you know, I'll eat a Dorito and I don't need dip with it. But that's the only one.
Okay, all right.
Just Doritos.
Just a Dorito.
But I think also like you wouldn't just eat, I mean maybe you could, but you wouldn't eat like guac with a spoon.
I
Like
think
in
a lot
that
of people
instance it's
do.
like you
For
do need
yourself.
I
need
could.
the dry though. I think
Right.
the dry elevates it.
What about those wacky astronauts who were like, freeze dry all my food forever?
Yeah,
Demanded.
that's
That was
it
their
wasn't
primary
even
trait was
scientifically
wackiness.
necessary. They just liked
They
it.
get back to Earth and just like, this isn't freeze dried. Get it out of my face.
We're freaks, space brokers. Jared Aranagio writes in. They say, "Hey, MinnMax crew, what is the
Pixie sticks.
Pixie sticks?
No.
Yeah, they truly
Just
suck."
eat dust.
Jared, what is the coolest console name? I was recently at a planetarium with my partner, and all the talk of planets reminded me how cool the name the Sega Saturn is.
I actually immediately thought of Saturn.
It is pretty
Oh,
good.
I thought it was
was like-
Dreamcast.
Dreamcast
But
is
either way,
really.
Sega kind of takes it away with console names.
I agree.
I was thinking though, and I'm like, if I'm explaining a concept to someone, and I like go up to my grandma and I'm like, what do you think a Sega Saturn is? She's gonna come up with all these different answers. But if I'm like, Grandma, what is an Xbox 360? I'm like, bro, maybe it's not the coolest name, but it's the most gamer name for a console.
It absolutely is.
That's why I
There's
think
never
it
one
might-
name. Maybe
It
the
might
GameCube.
be the worst. I think Xbox One maybe outdoes it. Maybe
Yeah.
Series X outdoes it.
That's absolutely the worst. Xbox Series X is the worst name a console has ever had.
It's bad. Is it? Yeah. The Apple Pippin.
Can I do? Yeah, I was gonna say, can we do some obscure ones? Because yeah, like Valley Astrocade.
That's pretty sweet.
Astrocade's
Some of
pretty
these are so
good.
bad and
The
they
one
come back
actually that-
around. Like the Fairchild Channel F. I'm like, that's actually kind of a cool name for a console.
I mean,
I like
one
the
that I thought of.
TurboGrafx 16 is a very gamer.
That's good.
That's
sounding
up there.
console.
Yep.
Jaguar was the one that I thought was like cool name.
That is cool. Yeah, you're right.
Is that the whole name?
The Atari Jaguar, yeah.
Oh, Atari Jaguar. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we
I was
learning
gonna say,
that if you
thought it was
give
a
your
car.
console a cool name, you won't be successful? Is that like the theme?
Yeah, go with a gentleman's name like 2 or 3 or 4.
Or the Wii.
Yeah. I mean, everybody likes to bash the Wii U name. Like, if that console was a wild success, I don't think we'd bat an eye on it. It's just now everybody can dogpile in retrospect to be like, well, of course that was the number one problem. But I'm like,
I was dogpiling at the time. The second they announced that name, I was dogpiling.
you would have recanted your
That's
dogpiling.
part of why it wasn't a success, like undeniably, like truly.
I think
no
a bigger
sarcasm.
component than the name for the Wii U was the fact that they got out there messaging it and refused to show the console. So all they did was show the controller and not the console for a long time, and then had to try and dispel the rumors like, oh no, this is more than just a new controller for the Wii, where it's like that was just the ultimate marketing blunder of all time there. But
Can I do one more?
Of course.
That no one's heard of? The Cougar Boy.
Oh, the Cougar Boy.
Is that like,
I
is
don't
that like
like
the
that
handheld
one.
version of the Jaguar? Is that what that is?
No, it's the Cougar Boy and the Mega Duck are the same like Game Boy clone-esque consoles. It's just they
He's
changed the
making
name
these
for
up.
different. I'm not. Get one if you want.
What was
I
is
like
that-
how Megaduck is like boldly proclaiming the name of its It's as big as the D-pad. It says Megaduck on it.
The
That's so funny.
font of Mega Duck has to be seen to be believed. It's like
awful.
Papyrus and Comic Sans had a baby.
You guys want to know a secret?
Sure.
My Discord like profile picture, that is the Mega Duck from the Mega Duck console.
Titular Mega Duck.
That is the titular Mega Duck.
I always wonder what that is. Yeah. Yeah, there was something about, there's a big Collector Corner fan apparently in the chat who remembers Snake Roy. That was on the Cougar
Snake
Boy.
Roy.
So
That was that's a Cougar Boy game.
Snake Roy on the Cougar Boy
Snake Roy on the Cougar
is a
Boy.
great children's TV show.
Charles, I would like you to write a song
my
about this now, since that
God.
already rhymes.
Snake Roy and the Cougar Boy.
That box art is
For Snake Roy?
nightmare. fuel.
Incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Maybe the best box art of all time.
Yeah, everyone's too focused on like, Eco for the PS2 looks dumb, but Snake Roy box art cannot be topped.
Tells you everything you need to know about the game.
And the fact that it has Cougar Boy like written like twice on certain versions. I'm like,
Right.
wow. And I've really learned something today. This is incredible.
Doogie,
welcome.
That's right. Dougie, teach me how to pronounce your name. Dougie Hockey writes in, they say, missed joke recognition. Last episode, Janet said, quote, Duck Detective really fits the bill. And no one said anything. And that's on
We
us.
appreciated a great joke.
Yeah. Nicole writes in, a percentage chance Janet was intending for that to be a joke, Jacob.
0.
0? Okay.
But sometimes you don't need to mean to create great art in
Okay.
order for it to happen.
That could be right. Tokyo Game Life has a hard-hitting question for Kelsey. Sorry, I should have given you a heads up. This gets a little personal, Kelsey. But Kelsey, Metapod or Kakuna?
Metapod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beedrill's a better Pokemon, but Metapod's a better intermediate evolution.
Yeah, like unquestionably, I always want to root for the underdog, and Kakuna is clearly the underdog in the situation, but I think Metapod is just better narrative in the show. Like, it gets more screen time. Like, yeah, I want to say Kakuna,
It's
but
a
my heart
really-
says Metapod.
It's a really satisfying shape too. Like, don't you just kind of want to hold a Metapod?
Yes.
Like, don't you feel like that would be a very good shaped Pokemon to hold?
Desperately, yes.
I don't know if you've, as a kid, the first time I encountered Metapod was in Leaf Green, and seeing its shape in that sprite and then other sprites later, I could not perceive what it looks like. He's like a Cyclops in Leaf Green, and in other ones he's like more vertical.
You should have seen it.
what you're
Relatable to
saying.
anyone.
Yeah.
I had to pull up this sprite art. Yeah, it's kind of an odd angle they gave him there, where he looks more. I don't know. You can't really tell what's going on with him, or you pretend
fell on
you're
his
looking at him
stomach.
from the side and he's got a huge nose.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to
I
look
see
at
it that way,
I'm trying to
too.
remember what it looked like in Red and Blue. I can't imagine that pixel art for that was much better. Remember in Red and Blue, Kelsey, how it was just like, when you looked at your party, it would just have kind of like the stock thing of like, I don't know, it's kind of a big walky one, but like, I would love to see the chart. That must exist online for like, we lumped all these Pokemon into fitting this body type, even when it makes
Yeah.
zero sense whatsoever.
like basically every grass Pokemon was just like a flower. So you'd have like a Venusaur, but it would just be like this dinky looking flower sprite in your party. Yeah.
It's all the same. Username MINuts writes in. They say, hey, MinnMaxers, I was listening to an old MinnFax episode. This is the precursor to the precursor for Bonus Spotter podcast. That's Patreon exclusive. MINuts, write in, explain why you're doing this. That's fascinating. I was listening to an old MinnFax episode circa 2020, and Ben mentioned that Kelsey is an amazing singer. I don't think there's been any content that shows off the cohorts' vocal talents. Where are all the karaoke streams? Well,
Wait,
Kelsey...
I'm also not, I would not say amazing. I can sing okay, but why do you know that?
What? Hang on. We just untapped a secret point of braggadocio from Kelsey.
That was bragging.
That was
And why do you know that I'm
bragging.
so incredible?
Wait, who told you? Yeah, that I'm like a goddess with my vocal pipes. No, I think I was talking about my friend Kelsey, who we did a karaoke stream, and she was on some tabletop content. Am I nuts?
You're not his friend.
This is a real
Kelsey.
backpedal.
Okay.
Like, oh
This
no, I met my friend Kelsey. She goes to another school.
my friend, not you, who I definitely want to make clear, not my friend.
Right. And also sings like a mule.
No, I don't. I like karaoke, and I like to think I'm decent at it. I'm by no means like I could be the front man of a band or whatever, but like...
Don't put yourself down. Come on. You could be the front man of a band.
Okay.
Okay, how about
All
this,
right,
Kelsey?
okay.
So I'm going to Seattle for the holiday break. Can we go do karaoke?
All right, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. And the beauty is, and I'm sorry for everyone listening, zero content involved. Like
You'll just have to confirm or deny at the end if I'm okay at singing.
Right. And I'll cryptically give a thumbs up or thumbs down on the Discord, and that's your only hint about whether or not Kelsey can sing. Nicole writes in and says, happy holidays, everyone. What do you plan to play during your holiday break / downtime this year? I suspect many will be digging into their backlogs. I'm going to start with my future log, actually.
Thumbs this up because I've been asking Kelsey what I should play. I often like to. Last year I played Chrono Trigger over the break, and it kind of like I should play like some gaming homework, a classic that I just should have in my brain and I don't yet. And I thought it was going to be Nier Replicant, and I started playing that, and I was just, I like on Blue Sky I was like, hey, when does the good part start? I'm just kind of running between 3 towns, and people were like, it's that for 40 hours, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
That was one of those games that I got to the final boss and just, it happens sometimes, lost all momentum.
Yeah.
And never beat the final boss. I think it was just because I knew it was like, you got to play it 4 more times, and I was like,
Yeah, well, so you got to
I don't even want
like
to do this.
halfway maybe, right? Because it's like, it's not even, the ending A is not the real ending. So I'm thinking maybe Earthbound, which I've never played before.
I think that's a good one. Like, so here's the thing. I think you need to play Mother 3, but I also think you probably need to play Earthbound, and I don't think it's fair to be like, I feel like I'm giving you pages of homework at this point as opposed to like single essay kind of thing.
No, I would like to play Mother 3.
Okay, because that's like, I mean, that is the better game. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. It's one of the greatest games like ever. But also, I think it would be hard to play regular Earthbound after that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oh, like it would be hard to go back. I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. You also mentioned Moon, which is just one of my favorites of all time. And I don't know, like, I think it's tough because after hearing that you did not like Nier Replicant like at all, I'm like, I don't feel like I can throw any like kind of bad but still like an interesting RPG games at you. You know, I feel like they have to actually be pretty good for someone who doesn't like RPGs.
Jacob, have you seen?
Or doesn't play a lot of RPGs. I don't know. I don't know if it's a dislike.
But I think Earthbound, he would just. I'm just making assumptions about you, Jacob, here. But like that game is like fun and weird, right? In a way that's like the writing is super interesting, just because it's so strange. And I think that would like take you through that game without problem.
Yeah. And you do what you want to do. I do feel like at some point it'd be fun to do an Earthbound Deepest Dive, but there's 1,000 games that'd be fun to do. So don't let that, hold you back. Did you see, we did a bonus pod and made it on YouTube actually, so you can watch that in full if you want to, but all about like other hidden gems that the community suggested from 2024. And there's a game that I was like, this looks Jacoby as all hell. Have you seen this Psycho Pomp Gold?
Excuse me.
Let me see. I watched that stream, but there were a lot of names.
It was the first one out of the gate.
This was the one where it has, like really weird art style.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks raunchy and weird and overwhelmingly positive on Steam, but it looks freaking sweet. So just play Psycho Pomp Gold, and then you'll be set.
Looks like a Gorillaz music video or something.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to the break. There's and I'm making a list and checking it twice of all the games that I want to play. And a lot of it's like PS2 games, people make fun of me because I pronounce it wrong. Gitaru Man? Guitaru Man? Okay, I don't know how you freaks pronounce it. But that
Gitaru.
I started.
That sounds like a thing you're yelling at someone. Like,
but it's not spelled like
Gitaru.
Man. Gitaru, you two. You PS2. So I started that recently and I was like, this rules. I can't wait to play through all of that. And then Guitar Hero rocks the 80s. I've never played through that game, and it's like, it's like Harmonix's last Guitar Hero game. That's absurd that I haven't played through that. So I've got my old guitar, so I'm going to boot that up. And so my holiday break's going to be music games, old music games, and then VR. Like I want to jump into Triangle Strategy VR. I want to finally play through Res VR. I've never played through that, which seems bizarre. I've dabbled a little bit, but then, also I have DJ Hero that I've never really played. I played the multiplayer and was like, it's fine, but I want to finally understand what everyone was raving about with DJ Hero. Oh, and I guess it's very musical because also the aforementioned Sayonara Wild Hearts I never played, and it's like, that'd be a good one to kind of bang out in a holiday break.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
a lot of those are
peripheral
like
Christmas for
one-sitting
you.
games.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what Christmas is all about, is peripherals.
Speaking of VR real quick, Ben, I got a bunch of in Batman VR, a lot of moments that were like, this is it. You can't go back once you do this, once you turn off your computer or whatever. And my headset died like as I was like walking up towards presumably the end boss. So I was
died?
No, like battery died. I was I got the alert that was like, it's getting low, and I was like, maybe I can make it, and I couldn't. So I had to charge it up, and maybe I'll try to beat it today.
Some dark night you are.
I'm sorry.
Danganronpa 2. I played the first one right when I got laid off from Game Informer, and the hooks that game had in me, I was like, I cannot play the second one if I have anything else going on. It was everyone that always heard I liked Ace Attorney was like, you should play the Danganronpa games, and I go into I black out for 5 days, and then the game is done, and I clocked like 60 hours in it or whatever, where I was like, I just need a space where nothing else is going on and no one needs to talk to me for a while to just like lock in and play one of these other games.
Have you played what do they call the nonary games? Like
999 Zero Escape.
999 and Zero Escape.
No.
Yeah, put those on your list if you like Danganronpa. Yeah.
Okay. But like not if I have stuff to do. Like I will, but I'll play them in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably going to. My partner and I were talking about really trying to get back into Baldur's Gate 3 over the break and finally understand all of that.
And if you don't like it, we can remove it from Game of the Year 2023 for the 210s?
I will. I'll just never mention it again if I don't like it.
That seems fair. Super Cerberus writes in and says, "Hey, missed joke opportunity. Just so you guys know, last week Janet said that Duck Detective fits the bill, and no one jumped in to say the Duck Bill. Yeah, look, we're not perfect. We never claim to be perfect on this podcast, and like to personally apologize. I need to send out an apology, like block text on social media of us missing the joke opportunities with Janet saying Duck Detective fit the bill.
The header should just be getting better."
New Year's resolution.
Not one joke missed for all of 2025. LB writes in and says, "Hey everybody, who got it worse in the 1990 hit film Home Alone? Was it Marv or Harry?" Great question. Thank you for writing.
Which one's Daniel Stern?
Daniel Stern is Marv.
Because he steps
The
on
taller.
a nail, right?
That's exactly what it is. The nail going through the foot.
That's the worst thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a horror movie with a more brutal kill than him stepping on that nail.
I genuinely was thinking about like that nail through the foot in Home Alone. That was like traumatic, but it's also the training we needed for the next step, which was the knife scene from Saving Private Ryan. Like, those two are like in the same arena for just unwatchably painful. But I mean, yeah, technically,
who
what
gets
like
hit with the paint can?
I think
That's Joe Pesci, right?
yeah. Or do they
Marv
dodge him
also
on the
has the
stairs?
spider on his face, I think, right?
But that's fine. Like the iron also goes to Marv, like the iron in the face. That's brutal. The big in number 2, I think it's 2, isn't it? Yeah, with like the big bar that they send down, and they both get knocked down. That looks pretty brutal. For sure.
In 2, there's a part, if I'm remembering correctly, I saw each of these movies like for the first time in the past 2 years. So correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a scene in 2 where they're just like throwing bricks at him.
Yes.
And I remember being like, they're not playing up as awful as the number of times they get hit with bricks from like several stories up. I'm like, that would kill, one of those would kill a man.
Marv is
There's
also
a,
electrocuted grotesquely. You got to see a skeleton, so that's pretty traumatic there.
That's pretty gory.
There's a Reddit, they did the math calculating how hard he got hit in the face with that paint can.
Yeah.
And it's roughly 3 times the force of 100-mile-an-hour fastball to the face.
Jesus.
So a 300-mile-per-hour fast.
That's right. It just went clean through his skull.
He is the bird from that GIF. Jesus Christ. I just learned, by the way, that first Home Alone, the first Home Alone, that exteriors obviously filmed at the house. All the interiors, that was filmed in a school. They got a school and they recreated the interior of an entire house just for filming.
Gosh.
But isn't that crazy? Because like it looks so cozy. I want to live in that school, man. Of course, Marriott Player writes in with a classic question and says, "Hey Ben, when is MinnMax going to do the deepest dive on the Bible?" But then they followed up with saying,
Bible Adventures.
"Oh yeah,
The NES games."
They do follow it up by
Game
saying,
that's just the Bible on a Game Boy cartridge.
okay, all right, not bad." But they say, when are you going to do the deepest dive on the Bible? I'm really interested in that. I know, Janet and I normally talk about it. I do want to do the deepest dive before MinnMax shuts down and closes up forever. So help me God, no pun intended. We will do a deepest dive on at least one book of the Bible. I do think that'd be really fun.
Wow.
That will actually be what causes MinnMax.
Slamming the door behind you.
And stay out. This is what we want to talk about. Piet van Rosmalen writes in and says, Ubisoft has announced it's going to shut down X Defiant next year, and it's refunding players. Yeah, this is great. Also, they're shutting down like the whole development studio in San Francisco, which, Kyle, yeah, you came to that, right? For the South Park Fractured But Whole that was made there. Yeah. And the Rocksmith devs, like, they're all getting the boot. There won't be any offline mode available after the shutdown of X Defiant. Is there any way to preserve X Defiant from Ubisoft?
So I don't know, like, I'm not a super technical person. I'm not the kind of person who could spin up a server and, like, recreate X Defiant offline. But I still maintain that that is not the best way to, like, preserve a game's history, is by just keeping it playable. And I think there is way, way, way more, and this is true for, like, Concord and stuff, too, way, way more to be learned from the like combination of contexts, the like ecosystem of all of these different things going on around it, than having the game playable will ever be. I think if you have a pretty nice collection of people playing the game and talking about the game, I mean, obviously it would be great to also have the game, but like I think just from a historical standpoint, having a bunch of videos, people playing the game from multiple different perspectives, Twitch streams, YouTube videos, whatever. Maybe I assume there were some people making like, here's how to be the best with this weapon or whatever in X Defiant, that kind of stuff. And then getting a bunch of that context from the developers. They're probably not able to do any of that right this second, but hopefully as they are vacating their studios or whatever, they are doing this with, like grabbing all of the stuff and maybe taking it home with them and maybe not telling anybody that they're doing that. And someday, being able to speak to those developers, talk to them about the materials, share all of that stuff about the development, and with the addition of all of the context of people talking about it, whether that's on forms or in video content or whatever. Like, I think that gives us a much greater picture of what a game is, what a game has done in the context of greater video game history than just having it be playable for 4 people who, you know, are like, oh, what about that old game that lasted? How long did XDefiant last? Like 8 months?
A year, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's shutting down in the summer. Yeah.
A couple years ago, Kelsey, I interviewed you for something about preservation, and you were like, the Leroy Jenkins World of Warcraft video is more important to our understanding of World of Warcraft than if you had like a playable build of exactly that point in the game. It sounds like that's awesome.
Yeah,
I stand by
that. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a good perspective.
An empty Azeroth is not that interesting.
Josh Lamb writes in and says, here's a little game, everybody. It might require quick fact checking, so keep your Googles nearby. Only I may Google. Everybody else, hands off the keyboard. No cheating. No cheating, Kyle. Hands off the keyboard. All right, I'll give you a year. I want you to name a game that came out in that year. Let's see if we can do this. 1996.
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye. Pokemon in Japan.
Oh yeah, that is Pokemon Red and Green in Japan.
Yep. StarCraft.
Mario 64?
Was that 95? When did the 64 get here?
I think it might. I think
Thought it
Charles might
was
be right.
96.
I can see 1996 in the like copyright start screen, but I might just be inventing
Okay.
So that
you
would
know?
also be Pilot Wings 64. What was
Star Wars Shadows of the Empire,
There were 3 launch titles for the 64. What was the third one?
Wave Race 64.
Was it Wave Race? Yeah, that sounds right.
All right. Now name one big news story that happened in the world in 1996.
Was that an
I
election
turned
year?
2.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
Beat
Well,
Bob.
was he reelected or would he be like re-inaugurated?
He was reelected. Yeah,
96.
Bob Dole lost to Bill Clinton. I remember that being the first election I was aware of. And I remember I had a sticker that said, I voted for Garfield. And I stand by that. I still voted for Garfield every single year. Chester A. Garfield, everybody. Okay.
Wish you hadn't this year, Ben.
Well, what are you going to do? Hey, 2014. Name a video game. That's,
Dragon Age
20
Inquisition.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor.
yep. South Park, Stick of Truth, Smash Brothers Wii U. And now name a world
I see where
event
this is going.
from 2014.
Look, I was employed in a place where the whole point of the year was to think about video games.
Yeah, we should rank real world news stories for the 210s this year. I don't know if I can name a single thing confidently that happened in 2014.
Was that blue dress gold or blue
Let's
dress?
say it was.
That
Let's all just
popular, right?
agree that the blue
boring.
dress, gold dress was 2014. Okay, 1989. Kind of a tricky game year.
Game Boy came out.
Okay, there we go. All right, so what was
Kyle,
launched?
2015. Sorry.
Oh, so close.
Oh, I was close.
Okay, so that's Mario Land, right? Launch of Game Boy. That's Tetris on Game Boy. That's
think, yes.
Volfeed, my favorite arcade game. That's 1989 joint.
This is the only year where I know world events and no games. I don't think I could name a game that came out like by year before the 90s.
Okay. All right, that's fair. Kelsey, important question. Clax, the iconic game that when you boot it up, it says, it is the 90s. It is time for Clax. Did that come out in 89 or 90? It might be a 90. That might make more sense.
Yeah, I think 90.
Okay. Charles, I know you weren't alive in the 90s, but it was the time for Clax. You should have been there, bro.
It's all the time.
Yeah.
Clearly the time for Clax has passed because I've never heard of them.
You don't know Clax?
Rest in peace, Clax.
And then 89, that's Berlin Wall, right?
Yeah. Fall of the okay. Berlin Wall.
All right.
That's like one of the in AP European world history. 1989 was like the last year we learned history. We're like, and that's the last significant thing. We don't talk about the 90s.
Francis
and 2000s
Fukuyama,
yet.
end of history.
Yeah. And the rest was
It's done.
The rest was Clax. All right. Well, you get the idea. Embarrass yourself at home. Try and play that little trivia game. See how you do, everybody. Thank you, Josh Lamb, for writing in. All right. What do y'all like for question of the week?
Cool console name.
That I like that too.
Learning about the Mega Duck.
Yeah,
Roy thing for
Snake
me.
Roy
Live in my nightmares.
will
forever.
live in our dreams and nightmares forever. Yep.
I
Okay.
also like the dessert one.
I like the dessert one
We had
too.
a pretty good spirited conversation about how wet is better than dry in
Yeah,
basically all food contexts.
I had to edit out a lot of that because we were screaming at each other a little too aggressively. It kind of got mean. But all right, I'm feeling good about coolest console name if you all are.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations, Jared. You just won the prize for My 8-Bit, which of course is the Stray vinyl soundtrack. They just ship it to your damn house. If you're a Patreon supporter, any tier in the $1 tier, you can submit a question each and every week and then potentially win a great prize like that from a great company like I'm 8-Bit. All right, now it's time for something that we like to call Get a Load of This. Hey y'all, get a load of this. Kyle, I assume you're the main person here who remembers. You remember back during the time of Clax, there was a TV show called Mega Man that was really good.
The animated one, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of not wanting to go back to stuff, in my memory, it was like up there with Breaking Bad, I think, was the Mega Man animated TV show. And so I was talking about, I was obsessed with this old song that was like a techno remix of a Pokemon song. Or it was like an original German dance song where they go, Pokemon, run, ding, 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 ding. I just had it on some CD and I listened to it all the time. So I was tweeting about it like a cool guy. And then somebody pointed out that the German intro to the Mega Man TV show is also quite good. So here's the German intro. You remember the Super Fighting Robot, the classic American intro. Well, here's the German version. You gotta go to a club.
That's a DDRS song if I've ever.
Oh, that'd be a cool one to play on there. Oh my god.
Mega Man.
Get a load of this. Enron is back
Thank
in
God.
5 days. Apparently, there's
It's like Majora's Mask.
It's not. It's almost certainly not the old Enron. Charles, do you know what Enron is?
I have no idea.
Whoa!
Okay.
You guys,
it
look
was
at him! Look at this little baby boy.
He used his one time to make us all feel old.
I mean, honestly, like, I'm kind of too young for it. It went bankrupt in, like, the early 2000s. It was a big accounting scandal, and it was this energy company that folded over lots of accounting fraud and stuff. And it's just kind of like when I went to business school years ago, they were still using Enron as, like, the example of, bad ethics or whatever. So, yeah, like, there's like now an Enron website that's like, check back in 5 days, we're coming back. It is clearly like someone has bought the Enron trademark and is doing something stupid with it. What was they have like their website says that Enron stands for like, the N stands for like nice, and the R stands for like repentance or something like that. Like it's clearly there's clearly some joke coming in several days, but I'm very excited to see what it is because it's stupid.
I hate to burst the bubble.
No.
And this says Enron announces its return from the dead with crypto patents and a bunch of merch. So it.
I was hoping for like a trailer
like
at the
any
Game Awards.
mildly funny idea, it's a crypto thing.
Oh, damn it. All right, well, you tried, Enron.
Well, I
get a load of
appreciate you
this.
bursting my bubble here and not later.
Much like Enron did in 2001. I hope mine isn't a crypto scam. One of my new favorite YouTube channels is Any Austin, which is a man who talks about video games, if you can believe it. 6 days ago, he had a video called "Do Grand Theft Auto 5's power lines connect to anything?"
Perfect video. Perfect video.
It's like kind of in a series that he's been doing, but it is so good, where he's just looking at how power lines work in Grand Theft Auto and like goes to like a substation and then has like an electrical engineer be like, okay, this part kind of makes sense. This part, they've got like the grounding cables, but they don't have anything connected to them. But it's just kind of like there are flaws, but it ultimately makes Grand Theft Auto 5 seem even more impossible, and just like so much of this is right. Like this would have been, 3 people's job for 10 years to just figure out these power lines.
God, do you in your heart of hearts, how excited are you for GTA 6, Jacob?
I'm like more excited for it to come out than like me to play it, if that makes sense.
I'm in the same camp. Yes, 100%. Yep, I get it. All right, Charles, you got one?
I already did mine. It was that Tries theme.
Oh, of course.
Kelsey wasn't here for this, so Kelsey, get a load of this.
I heard. I was
watching.
listening.
Dang
I'm
it.
just so glad for the try representation.
The third example I didn't give is that the Hyrule Castle theme in that game, Hyrule Castle in Link to the Past has a pretty distinctive like beep, 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 beep. That like interval is often associated with the King of Hyrule. In Echoes of Wisdom, it's just that interval but flipped. That's how it starts. But other than that, it's not very familiar.
I love it.
Hey, get a load of this. I just wanted to shout this out because it's like this thing that I'm excited about. But Phil Lord and Chris Miller's next movie, who I feel are weirdly almost like underrated, but they're like the best comedy directors like working right now. And their next movie stars Ryan Gosling, and it's an adaptation of Andy Weir's book Project Hail Mary. Andy Weir wrote The Martian.
Yeah.
And when I found out about it, I went and got the audiobook for Project Hail Mary and listened through it. And I'm really excited for this movie. I want to know more about it. So it's like, hey, get a load of this. If that movie comes out and it's really good, I called it.
Okay, cool. What's the book about?
It's about it's science fiction. It's like trying to save Earth from this calamity that they can't figure out, so they have to send this scientist off into space, and he meets an alien, and they figure it out together. And it's really fun and charming and cool, and it's like the kind of sci-fi that I am getting into at my age now. Like I read Rendezvous with Rama like a year or two ago, and it's just like I love thinking about aliens and how that would change humanity, and that's kind of what that book is about. And I'm also just excited for Phil Lord and Chris Miller to make a science fiction movie after Solo fell through. So yeah, really looking forward to that movie whenever it comes to exist.
It's no Paul, but I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Hey, get a load of this from the community. From the
movie
community.
I went to theaters to see.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I was excited for that movie.
Hey, get a list from the community. They have a whole channel in the Discord, which you get access to on Patreon, and it's overflowing, but not weirder. Posted a tweet from Face Punch Studios, the developers of Rust, and they say, hey everybody, 16-time Grammy Award-winning singer Adele stopped by Face Punch recently. Her son is a big fan of Rust, and she wanted to check out the game that keeps him so hooked. Thanks for the visit, Adele. Just a picture of Adele in the studio that made Rust.
That's awesome.
So, there you go.
That's so funny.
But that is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, listening, sharing, all that fun stuff. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on. Kelsey, thank you for taking the time and catching a moving train as it's hauling down the railroad tracks. We got a lot of stuff coming up. So the Game Awards are happening next week. They're happening on Thursday evening. So Sarah and Leo and I will be streaming reactions on MinnMax's YouTube channel from the MinnMax studio together. Our classic ritual. It's going to be fun. So we're going to be doing that on Thursday the 12th. We also will be releasing the final regular episode of the MinnMax Show podcast that Thursday as well, earlier in that day. So we won't be recapping the Game Awards reveals and stuff, but if you want to see us do that, you can tune into the reaction stream, because on that episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones, Infinity Nikki, a ton more stuff, kind of the final game check-in before we launch into the whole trio of GOTY content here at MinnMax. So the week after that, that's going to be for the public consumption. Thursday the 19th is going to be the MinnMax Awards, where we have different categories like Biggest News, Best Moment, Greatest Work of Art of All Time from 2024, all that fun stuff. That's happening on the 19th. Then on the 26th of December is part one of our Game of the Year debate. We're going to be building out a big list of the greatest games that came out in 2024. And then normally how this happens is part one of that discussion is once we lock down the top 20, we cut off everything else, and then that is the end of part one. Part two, which is The following week's episode, which is going to be January 2nd, that's going to be then the debate to rank those 2 10s, put everything in order. And again, it's 2 10s in honor of the 2 N's in Minnesota, which is also in MinnMax, the name. It's very clear, everybody. So thanks to everybody new for checking out the Game of the Year debates this year. It should be a fun time. We are going to be pre-recording those. So this is where it gets complicated. But basically, if you're a $5 supporter on Patreon, you get access to all of our Game of the Year debates 1 day early, and it's ad-free, so keep that in mind. But if you're at the $10 tier, the Backstage Pass tier, you can watch us record all of those debates live. You can jump in the chat as we're arguing with each other, and you can watch the unedited archive as well, which includes the pissy zone, as we call it, where after our Game of the Year debates, we really unleash on each other all of our real thoughts about who got screwed and who was out of line. So it's a community favorite. So all of that's going to be available, by the end of December 18th. So if you want to hear our Game of the Year debates weeks ahead of time, basically 2.5 weeks ahead of time, you can do it by supporting us at the $10 tier. Even if you jump up for just 1 month, we'd appreciate that. So check it out if you're interested. So that is the big rundown for the GOTY content. We hope y'all enjoy it. I believe next week is going to be the last New Show Plus of the month, and so we have some other stuff that'll be trickling out, but we're going to be a little bit dormant, but there will be new podcasts released on a regular schedule because we're pre-loading all this stuff and pre-recording it. But right now, there's already too much content on MinnMax's YouTube channel, so check out Charles Hart's awesome travelogue. If you haven't seen that yet, him going to Osaka, Japan. Thank you for being comfortable filming yourself in a foreign country, because you don't get enough credit for that, but you feel like a real jerk in America holding a phone up and being like, blah, 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 and talking into it. But doing it in a country that you're not comfortable in, that takes a lot of skill, Charles. So thank you.
Yeah, I was looking up stuff. I'm like, what's rude to do in Japan? And people were like, yeah, don't talk on your phone really loud. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do something worse than that. And I also, in the mall where like the Capcom store, the Studio Ghibli store was, there's an Ultraman store. I don't know anything about Ultraman, but I walked in and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I did get kicked out of the Ultraman store, someone did come up to me and they're like, hey, no video was the English that they were using for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to turn around and leave. I apologize. And I was like, that was awkward.
Hey, you're safe. That's fine.
So I survived though.
Great. And did they charge you extra for breaking that hotel door, or?
No, so it was an emergency latch that I didn't realize was an emergency latch until I used Google Translate. No one ever mentioned it to me, thankfully.
Oh, great. All right, check out the travelogue. It's hot footage in there. But also, let's see, new show overflow. So Aaron Johnson, during our Give to the Max stream, donated very generously to choose a new show plus option to revive it from the bin of rejected ideas. And so what they chose is for us to stream a reaction stream to the 2007 Spike VGA Awards. So Janet and Jacob and I recorded that. We're going to be airing that on the week, let's see, on December 18th. That'll be up like as in the place of the normal New Show Plus. And it was informative about culture in the year 2007, I guess. It was wild, everybody. So I hope you all enjoyed that one.
What games came out that year?
Only the finest. And of course, the world events, Kyle. I don't need to tell you.
You don't, because we all know it.
I saw all the games painted on a naked woman's body.
That's literally what happened during the Spike VGAs. Wow. It's a Class E presentation. Let's see. New Show Plus. Yeah, this week it was all of the hidden gems, playing a bunch of. What am I thinking of? Those bonus pod, those all about the hidden gems. Never mind. I'm going to disregard all that. Shout out. Something cool that happened is in the Discord, we were giving away codes to new supporters for Linked Banner of the Spark, that game on Steam from Max Spielberg, Steven Spielberg's son. And so we had an opportunity to do like an AMA where like 4 or 5 of the developers came by the Discord and just like talked to the community about the game, like the people who just got that game from supporting us on Patreon and jumped to the Discord. And it was cool to see, like, to give the community access to, developers like that, to ask them anything they want about the game industry, development, all that fun stuff. And so shout out to the developers of Linked Banner of the Spark for making that possible, and everybody knew who jumped in to Patreon because of that. Thanks to everybody for watching and trying to digest all of those Thanksgiving jokes that we posted on the bonus podcast feed, where we posted an extra 151 compared to the ones that were just on YouTube. But Jacob, presumably, thanks for watching those and bearing with us through some abysmal jokes in the batch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
It's very good.
Oh, thanks, Kelsey.
I echo Jacob's sentiments that it's the best part of the year, I think.
It's satisfying. It's so fun to do. God, I would seriously, if we just had infinite jokes, I would sit in that studio for 12 hours and read them. Like that format, I just can never get sick of. But this Friday on MinnMax's Twitch, we're going to do a gameplay stream, unless it falls through. But fingers crossed, I think it's going to be old best friend Ronnie and I playing Crow Country, which I've been meaning to play since it came out originally. But, you know, a retro survival horror game that is inspired by the looks of Final Fantasy VII, like, you gotta go play it. So we're going to play that game in the MinnMax studio together, so you can check it out on Twitch, and it'll be up on YouTube shortly after that. That is it. We have a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of stuff that we're just over the hurdle of. Charles, anything you want to plug, sir?
Yeah, if you go to charleshart.com, you can sign up for a private TTRPG session if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons or Roll for Shoes or Lasers and Feelings or any of the things I've played here on MinnMax. I actually have like a good number of people that signed up. It's like a cool kind of holiday event. I think people are, I'm kind of phrasing it as like, imagine taking a bunch of your friends to an escape room is kind of what it's like. If you're all going to come together, play a game for a few hours, and then dip. So a lot of rolls for choosing. And then I got we're doing a D&D game for someone's birthday right before Christmas, which is fun. So,
that's awesome. And so
charleshart.com.
Great. And there's an E at the end of heart, and there's no E towards the beginning of heart.
HARTE.
That's a cleaner way of saying it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us for this marathon episode. Appreciate it. And we'll be back next week for the final regular episode of the MinnMax Show for 2024. Exciting times. Be good. Have fun. Let's go.